Chapter 751. At this moment, the white-clothed M.O. Chun finally rushed forward in a flash, blocking the front of the barrier. Her hands rapidly condensed a powerful current of air and shot out, blocking the powerful killing intent that was rushing towards her. However, even if he took action, it would be difficult for him to withstand the combined attack of two nascent soul stage cultivators. The air attacks from both sides collided in midair, producing sharp sounds of air currents. The pressure of the three cultivators collided with the air currents and finally exploded. The strong hidden aura pushed both sides back several meters. As both sides retreated, blood seeped from the corners of their mouths. The strong impact sent Guan Shilin and the other two flying again. The last defensive barrier set up by Fengjiu also broke at this time. Bang! Mo Chan looked back and glanced at the person who was sitting cross-legged with air currents surging from his body. His black hair was scattered and flew messily. His face, which was only handsome in the past, was now extremely beautiful. Under the red robes, it was even more enchanting, inexplicably adding a feminine charm. Mo Chen's eyes moved slightly as he stared at that enchanting and beautiful face. After a long time, he looked away and glanced at the Xianling Qi and the powerful aura that was emitted from Fengjiu after the barrier was broken. He slowly turned back and looked at the two nascent soul stage cultivators in front of him. At the same time, he raised his hand and wiped away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Looking at the bright red blood on his fingertips, his eyes darkened. He, who was like a banished immortal, was now emitting a terrifying murderous aura. Just as the two nascent soul stage cultivators were shocked that he could block their combined attack with 100% of his strength, the figure in front of them flashed. The white figure flashed and appeared in front of the two of them in an instant. She grabbed their necks with both hands, and before they could react, their necks were crushed. That action was very casual and effortless, but it completely stunned the crowd behind him. The two nascent soul stage cultivators died with fear on their faces. But at this time, two small figures flew out from their bodies and tried to escape. However, before they could fly a meter away, they were once again killed by Mo Chun. Seeing this, not only the dean and the vice headmaster, but even the four nascent soul stage elders of the academy swallowed and looked at him in shock. Such a banished immortal, such a pure person. When he killed people, it was so terrifying that it made people's hearts tremble. Even though they knew that his strength was unfathomable, when they saw him effortlessly kill two nascent soul stage cultivators, they couldn't help but feel shocked. Could it be that his cultivation level was beyond the nascent soul stage? Could it be that his strength was above the nascent soul stage? Everyone felt their hair stand on end, especially when he turned to look at them with an indifferent expression. With the exception of the dean and the vice dean, everyone couldn't help but take a step back. Boom! The third bolt of lightning struck at this time, breaking the strange atmosphere. Everyone's gaze finally moved away from the banished immortal Mo Chun and landed on Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. After the third bolt of lightning struck, the surrounding spiritual aura surged into Fengjiu's body. His cultivation level also rose step by step. Looking at the speed of his growth, everyone's jaws dropped. Chapter 752. One of the instructors swallowed his saliva and supported the person beside him. Other people advanced by 1 or 2 stages. How could he advance by only 1 stage? He directly entered the foundation establishment stage. After the early stage, he didn't stop even after entering the middle stage. How can Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment be the same? It's definitely different. That's true. In all these years, the Academy has never encountered a Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment cultivator. However, looking at Fengjiu's terrifying aura, it's indeed different from ordinary Foundation establishment cultivators. At the front, the dean and vice dean heard the discussions of the instructors behind them, and the corners of their mouths twitched imperceptibly. They didn't know that Fengjiu had a profound spiritual body and thought that the aura came from Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. However, They didn't know that people with a profound spiritual body advanced differently from others. When ordinary cultivators entered the foundation establishment stage, they would stop at the first stage of foundation establishment. Even genius cultivators would stop at the second or third stage at most. For someone like Fengjiu, who directly broke through the early stage and entered the middle stage, there were very few of them. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, the surrounding spiritual aura returned to Fengjiu's body. Her cultivation also continued to rise. After entering the middle stage, it continued to rise. It didn't stop until the late stage and the peak stage. Her spiritual aura continued to surge as if it wanted to break through the final threshold. However, there was a limit to her ability. After several attempts at the peak stage, her spiritual aura gradually weakened and finally stopped. Even so, she became a peak foundation establishment cultivator as soon as she stepped into the foundation establishment stage. This kind of advancement speed caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. It had to be known that ordinary cultivators would need at least 10 years to advance from the early stage to the middle stage. However, he actually broke through to the peak of foundation establishment in less than half an hour. Fengjiu slowly opened her eyes. At this moment, she felt that her body was different. Because she had entered the foundation establishment stage, a small sea of spiritual aura formed in her dantian. It was like a whirlpool of spiritual aura that surged in her dantian, wrapping around the green lotus in her dantian. After entering the foundation establishment stage, her vision seemed to have changed. She could hear small sound from afar and see small things. In short, it felt very strange. However, what made her feel strange was that this white-clothed immortal was currently standing in front of her, staring straight at her. That kind of strange gaze that was sizing her up caused her to be involuntarily stunned. What? She sat cross-legged and didn't move. Even though she had entered the foundation establishment stage, the injuries on her body hadn't healed. You are a woman. Mo Chun stared at her. His voice was calm, but his eyes and his heart were not calm. Everyone. Nietung frowned and stared coldly at Mo Chun. Guan Shilin also stared coldly at him. Chapter 753. When Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged, heard this, she blinked and looked at Mo Chun in front of her. Seeing the expression on his face, as well as the astonished gazes of the people around her, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She reached out her hand and lifted a strand of black hair that was hanging down her cheek. She glanced at it, then casually tucked the strand of hair behind her ear. Only then did she stand up with the Qing Feng sword by her side. However, due to the injury on her shoulder and the other injuries on her body, her figure was slightly swaying when she stood up. At this moment, everyone seemed to have just noticed the Qing Feng sword in her hand. They were all stunned, and the series of shock made them not know how to react. Thank you all for coming to save me. Fengjiu thanks you all. Although her face was slightly pale, she still held the sword in her hand and bowed to everyone. Her gaze swept past the injured mentors and the 3 people from the black market. When her gaze swept past Nietung, she paused for a moment, then landed on the dean and the vice dean. Perhaps you all still don't know my identity. She revealed a smile. I'm the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, a 9th-ranked country. Therefore, I'm really a woman. She looked at Mo Chan with the last sentence, as if she was talking to him. The entire forest instantly fell silent. Every pair of eyes landed on her. At this moment, she was dressed in red, with her black hair draped over her shoulders. Although her face was pale, she was in high spirits. She was confident and cunning. No one thought that she was a youth anymore, because no matter how they looked at her, she was an enchanting beauty. You filled in the registration form as a man. One of the mentors swallowed his saliva. He only felt that it was inconceivable. The princess of a 9th-ranked country, the Phoenix dynasty? Fengjiu? A woman? Why did she dress as a man? Yes, she nodded and said, because it's more convenient for men to walk. And her voice paused, and her eyes, which were as dazzling as stars, narrowed. She smiled with a hint of teasing and slyness, and said with a smile that seemed to be both real and fake, Moreover, my appearance is so beautiful that it can topple cities, and my elegance is unparalleled in the world. If I were to walk around in women's clothes, my admirers would rush to my front and back, and I really wouldn't be able to resist them. However, it's different when I wear men's clothes. I'm elegant and handsome, and thousands of girls will fall for me. It's really much better than women's clothes. Black lines appeared on everyone's forehead as the corners of their mouths twitched. Speechless, they looked away. As soon as the danger was averted, she returned to her usual frivolous self. How could the current her be as fierce and ruthless as she was when she fought against a nascent soul cultivator? Where was the awe-inspiring presence from before? This Fengjiu, most of the mentors who hadn't interacted with her before only knew that she had a strange personality. Seeing her today, it really verified everyone's evaluation of her in the academy. However, according to what they knew, even if she was handsome and elegant in men's clothes, there were still many male and female students who gave her a nickname. Pretty boy. Seeing everyone's strange expressions, she smiled embarrassedly. Her narcissistic boasting made her a little embarrassed to continue. Thus, she put away her azure-edged sword and climbed onto Guan Xilin's shoulder with one hand and exhaled lightly. "Brother, carry me back. My body is full of injuries. It hurts like hell." Chapter 754. Nietang's face instantly darkened when he saw this. His gloomy eyes stared at the figure that had disappeared into the distance in an instant. The corners of his lips were pursed into a line. In the end, he gathered his strength and followed closely behind the figure toward the academy. Guan Xilin's expression was not too good either. He had originally bent his knees and was about to carry his sister on his back, but who knew that she would be carried away by Mo Chun? Anyone would be unhappy. At that moment, he threw out the 8 trigrams plate and quickly chased after them. Only Xiao Yicheng stood in a daze. Before he could recover from Fengjiu's words, he saw Fengjiu being carried away by Mo Chun. The dean and the vice dean looked at each other and were slightly surprised. Based on their understanding of Mo Chun, he was not someone who would do such a thing. But why did he carry Fengjiu and leave without saying a word? Ahem! The dean coughed dryly and looked sternly at everyone. He instructed, "Since Fengjiu appeared in male clothing, it means that she does not want others to know that she is a woman. When you go back, don't mention a word about what happened here." One of the teachers hesitated and asked, "Dean, the sword in her hand just now seemed to be the ancient divine sword, Qing Feng." Hearing this, the headmaster's dignified gaze landed on the instructor. He said in a deep voice, "It's the ancient divine sword, the Qing Feng sword. That's right. She must have obtained this sword through her own fortuitous encounters. Anything you see or hear here is not to be mentioned again." "Yes, we understand." Everyone nodded solemnly. They also knew that this was a serious matter. If they did not handle it well, not only would it bring trouble to Fengjiu, it would also bring disaster to their academy. "You heard it too?" The dean's gaze fell on the dazed Xiao Yihan. Xiao Yihan recovered and said with a serious expression, "Don't worry, Dean. I will definitely not say a word." There was only shock in his heart. How would he think of telling others about this? Moreover, what happened today was too unbelievable. A person he called little brother actually had the ability to fight a nascent soul cultivator alone. Moreover, it was a woman. All right, let's go back. Those with light injuries support those with heavy injuries. With that, the dean took the lead and left, leaving the rest to the vice dean. On the other side, Mo Chun, who was carrying Fengjiu on his sword, looked ahead, but his heart skipped a beat and his body stiffened. This was because the person in his arms had been staring at him ever since he picked her up. That kind of sizing up gaze was blatant and undisguised, causing him to be unable to relax. Gongzi Mo Chun? Fengjiu stared at banished immortal, whose lips were pursed. Hearing this, he did not lower his head. He only said indifferently, "If you have something to say, say it." "You're hugging me too tightly," Fengjiu teased. Mo Chun froze. He lowered his head and met her teasing gaze. He glanced at her and then looked away. As his body relaxed, the hand that was hugging her also relaxed a little. Fengjiu smiled and gradually relaxed. She closed her eyes and said, "I'm a little tired. I'm going to sleep for a while." After the fierce battle, all that was left of his body were injuries and fatigue. As the crisis was resolved, his entire body relaxed, and he gradually fell asleep. After a long while, Chun lowered his head and glanced at the woman sleeping in his arms. A complicated look flashed through his eyes. Without a doubt, he knew that the person he was looking for was her. Chapter 755. Yi Jing was waiting anxiously at the entrance of the academy. She had originally gone with the headmaster and the others, but when they went to the main street of the city, they were told by the citizens that those people had gone in the direction of the dense forest. She wanted to follow them, but was called back by the vice-headmaster. Her cultivation was the weakest among the group, and he was afraid that he would have to take care of her if she went. Thus, in order not to be a burden, she could only come back and wait. However, after waiting for so long, they still had not returned. The more time passed, the more uneasy she felt. I wonder if they'll be able to save Fengjiu. Will Fengjiu be able to hold on until the headmaster and the others arrive? She muttered to herself as she paced back and forth uneasily. Occasionally, she would raise her head to look at the sky in the east, hoping to see them return on their swords. However, after a long time, she finally saw a figure flying towards her on a sword. She was overjoyed. When she focused her gaze, she saw that it was young Master Mo Chun, and in his arms was Fengjiu, whose red robes had been torn and whose black hair was disheveled. "Fengjiu," she happily called out. Seeing that young Master Ma Chun didn't stop carrying her and directly flew into the academy on his sword, she immediately took out her flying device and followed. Behind them, Niet Tung and Guan Shilin arrived one after another. Their gazes were fixed on Mo Chun, who was carrying Fengjiu. When they saw that he was carrying Fengjiu to the main peak, they followed him to the main peak. After placing Fengjiu in the room next to his, he took a look at her injuries. Because most of her injuries were on her body, he could not take off her clothes to examine her, so he retreated. "This is medicine for her injuries. Go in and help her treat her wounds," he said to Yi Jing, who had followed closely behind him, and handed her a bottle of medicine at the same time. "Okay," Yi Jing replied, took the medicine, and quickly went in. Nietung and Guan Shilin also landed in the courtyard. When they saw him sitting in the courtyard, they were about to go in and take a look when they heard his voice. "A female student is bandaging her wound." Hearing that, the two of them stopped walking. Remembering that she was injured, they did not enter and instead retreated to the courtyard. They looked at the exiled deity, male, sitting by the stone table and did not say anything. The headmaster and the vice-headmaster followed. The two of them sat down in the courtyard and waited for the door to open. After about an hour, Yi Jing walked out. "Yi Jing, how's Xiaojiu?" Guan Shilin asked. Everyone's eyes fell on her as well. "She's fine. Her shoulder injury is quite serious, but it's already been bandaged. She woke up after sleeping for a while. She even took the medicine herself and then fell asleep again." Seeing that Fengjiu was still alive, she already felt very lucky. After all, not everyone could survive being hunted down by such a powerhouse. "I'll go in and have a look." As Guan Shilin spoke, he strode inside. However, just as he was about to push open the door, he stopped and frowned slightly at Nietung, who was beside him. "Why are you following me?" Nietung glanced at him and said in a low voice, "Get out of the way." "Uft, get out of the way? You want to go in? Who are you?" Guan Shilin sneered and blocked the door to prevent him from entering. Hearing that, Nietung's eyes darkened. Spiritual energy surged in his body. Just as he was about to make a move, he heard the vice-headmaster's voice. All right, stop messing around here." Chapter 756. Hearing this, the two of them did not attack. The dean and the vice-dean looked at each other, then walked in quietly. Mo Chun followed behind, Guan Shilin, Nietung, and Yi Jing. After a while, they all gathered around the bed. Fengjiu had already fallen asleep on the bed. Although her face was pale, her aura did not show any signs of weakening or becoming chaotic. This made them feel relieved. Seeing that her life was not in danger, they walked out together. It's good that she's fine. I'll leave this place to you. I'll go check on the injured mentors. The dean said as he walked out. Nieting paused for a moment, then left first. Guanxilin stayed behind and said, I'll wait for Xiao Jiu to wake up and take her back to her cave. The vice dean looked at the people in the courtyard, then coughed lightly and said, I'll go tell the ovens to make some medicinal porridge for her. It'll help her recover faster. With that, he also left. Only Guanxilin, Yi Jing, and Mo Chun were left in the courtyard. The three of them looked at each other in silence, and the atmosphere was a little strange. After a long time, Yi Jing looked at Guanxilin and said, You're injured. Let me help you bandage it. It's fine. It's just a scratch. He glanced at the small wounds on his arm and did not take them to heart. As for the internal injuries caused by the airflow, he had already taken some medicine on the way back. They had already healed a lot, so he was fine. Around evening, Xiao Yihan, who had returned to help the injured mentors bandage their wounds, also came. Seeing the white-robed banished immortal sitting motionlessly in the courtyard, he pulled Guanxilin aside and asked in a low voice, Fengjiu knows him? Maybe. Guanxilin said. He did not know much about Mo Chun. I heard from the dean that Fengjiu is fine. Is she still not awake? He looked at the tightly shut door and asked. She just woke up not long ago. Yi Jing helped her change her medicine inside. Hearing this, he nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit heavy, he said, Since there's nothing else, I'll go back first. I'll go visit her when she returns to her abode. Guanxilin nodded and watched him leave. Then he looked at Mo Chun, who was sitting beside him and reading a book. After a while, he looked away. The door opened and Yi Jing walked out. Fengjiu said he wants to go back to the cave to recuperate. Hearing this, Guanxilin turned around and walked in. I'll take her back. Beside the stone table, Mo Chun's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. He just sat there quietly. Not long after, Guanxilin walked out with Fengjiu on her back. She had already changed into her school uniform. Without her red clothes, her face looked even paler, but she was awake. Thank you. When Guanxilin walked past Mo Chun with her on his back, Mo Chun thanked him. Yi Jing supported her from the side and left with them. After they left, Mo Chun put down the book in his hand and looked up. He was silent for a long time. It's her? Is she the person you're looking for? The dean and the vice dean walked in and asked when they saw the person sitting at the table in a daze. In fact, the two of them already knew that the person he was looking for was Fengjiu. In the entire school, she was the only one who was so extraordinary. She was also the only one who could make young Master Mo Chun, who didn't care about anything, want to kill her and stain his hands with blood. Chapter 757. Hearing this, the dean and vice dean were startled. After a slight pause, the dean said, Then send my greetings to your master. He replied, his gaze falling on the sky. No one knew what he was thinking. On the other side, Guanxilin, who was carrying Fengjiu back to the Elixir Peak cave abode, did not notice that Lao Bai and Tunyan were missing. Instead, Fengjiu, who was lying on his back, noticed. Where are Lao Bai and Tunyan? Brother, help me look for them later. Don't go to the Elixir Peak to cause trouble when I'm not around. Okay, I'll go look for them later, Guanxilin said. After Fengjiu opened the cave abode's boundary, he put her down in her bedroom and asked Yi Jing to look after her. Then, he went out to look for Lao Bai and Tunyan. However, after looking around, he did not see the two beasts, so he went to the Elixir Peak. Finally, he went to the Xian courtyard to ask, What? You're looking for that strange horse and that meatball? They went out a long time ago, even before the dean and the others went to save Fengjiu. However, they didn't come back. A student said, then paused and asked curiously, Who wants to kill Fengjiu? Why did the dean and the other teachers come? You guys want to see, so you should know what happened, right? However, Guanxilin ignored his curiosity and was a little surprised. You told them? They left the academy? He did not wait for the student to answer and went to the guard to ask. Oh, you mean that strange horse and that meatball? They went out from the side door of the spiritual academy. They were so fast that I couldn't stop them. However, they went out for a while and the dean and the others came back, but the two beasts didn't come back. Hearing the guard's words, Guan Shilin immediately said, "I'll go out and look for them." Hey, you can't. Students are not allowed to go out without permission. This is the rule. The gatekeeper stopped him and said, "Although that horse is a bit strange, it's still a spiritual beast. It will know the way back, so there's no need to rush." Guan Shilin paused for a moment when he saw that he was being stopped. He then turned around and went to the main peak to look for the vice superintendent. He told him about the situation and applied to go look for Lao Bai and Tunyan. Spirit beasts know the way. How about this? If they don't come back by tomorrow morning, I'll let you go out and look for them. You're also injured today, so you should rest and recuperate first. Maybe the two little beasts will come back later. The vice president paused for a moment before saying, "Don't worry. I'll tell the gatekeeper that the two beasts won't stop them." Hearing this, Guan Shilin nodded. "All right, I'll go to the cave residence and tell Xiao Jiu so that she won't worry. And go. I asked someone to send her some medicinal porridge. Remember to let her eat it." "Thank you, Vice Superintendent." He cupped his hands and bowed before leaving. At the same time, in the forest not far from the academy, Lao Bai and Tun Yun, who had mistakenly entered the array, were trapped inside. They walked for several hours, but still couldn't get out. This made the two beasts, who were worried about Fengjiu, even more irritable. "You said you knew the way and could tell the direction. Look at you now. You've fallen into this broken array. After walking around for so long, you still can't get out. By the time we get out, maybe Master will be dead." Tun Yun was furious and vented all his anger from being trapped in the array on Lao Bai. Chapter 758. Lao Bai circled around again and said, "What should we do? We've been trapped here for a long time. Master won't really die, right? Oomph. Now, do you know how to worry?" Tun Yin snorted and lay on its back without moving. After thinking for a while, he said, "I have a contract with my master. If my master's life is in danger, I will be able to sense it. I don't feel anything right now, so it shouldn't be life-threatening. Moreover, Master has a natal contract beast. It's an ancient mythical beast. Even if something happens, it should protect Master. We were too anxious when we came out earlier. We should have asked first. Then what should we do now? Wait for someone to save us. No one usually comes to this damn place." Lao Bai kicked its hooves and said, "There's a formation here. If it was a barrier, we might be able to break it with our combined strength. But this formation can't be broken. We have to break it. If we want to break it, we have to find the core of the formation. But I'm not familiar with formations, so I haven't figured it out yet. So we just wait. Let's wait. Why don't we shout for help?" Lao Bai suggested, thinking that they should learn from humans. "It's so embarrassing. You can shout if you want." Tunyan curled its lips and turned its head to the side. "It's embarrassing if we lose our lives." Lao Bai snorted, turned around, and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Help! Save me! Is there anyone? Come and save me." The next morning, because the two beasts had not returned, Guan Shilin and Yi Jing each led 10 students out of the academy and went to the city to ask if they had seen the two beasts. However, they did not find them until noon. On the way back, Guan Shilin muttered, "No one in the city has seen them. Could it be that they didn't go to the city? They left the academy. Could it be?" Yi Jing looked at the forest in the east of the academy and said, thoughtfully, "There are many formations in the forest in front. Could they have entered it by mistake? Let's go take a look. There are many formations in there. Be careful when you look for them. Don't get trapped in there," she reminded. "Okay," Guan Shilin answered and separated from her to search. He shouted, "Lao Bai, swallow the clouds." The two beasts were originally sleeping in the forest, but when they heard the call from the forest, they immediately jumped up. "It's Beauty Yi Jing." Lao Bai's eyes lit up as he spoke in pleasant surprise. "I think there's also Master's elder brother," Tun Yun said. "They must be looking for us." Lao Bai turned around happily and shouted at the top of his lungs, "We're here! We're here! Beauty Yi Jing, we're here!" Yi Jing, who was leading 10 students to search the forest, suddenly heard a hoarse and excited voice. She couldn't help but ask the students beside her, "Did you guys hear that? Why does it sound like someone is calling me?" Could it be some students of the academy who accidentally entered the array? A student asked. He didn't think it was those two beasts at all. After all, beasts that weren't at the level of divine beasts couldn't speak the human language. Lao Bai was only a strange horse, and that little thing in the ball was only a pet. No one thought in that direction. Whether it's them or not, we have to go and take a look, Yi Jing said, and followed the direction of the voice. The closer she got, the clearer the voice became. Beauty Yi Jing, help, help, Beauty Yi Jing. Chapter 759. How could Beauty Yi Jing hear me if I didn't shout? Why didn't I shout for you to save me? Senior White spoke angrily as he turned around and glared at Tun Yun. You're already here and you're still shouting. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I do. What's there to be embarrassed about with this little meatball? What little meatball? You want to fight, don't you? Bring it on. Who's afraid of you? Yi Jing was dumbfounded, and so were the 10 students who came with her. When they opened the array, they saw Senior White's strange horse and the little pet called Tun Yun quarreling. Yes, they didn't hear wrong, and they didn't see wrong. They were quarreling. Two beasts quarreling. They never knew that beasts that weren't divine beasts could actually speak. Moreover, they'd seen 2 of them at once. What exactly was going on? Don't tell them that this lecherous Senior White was a divine beast. They wouldn't believe it, even if they were beaten to death. Not to mention that the little meatball was a divine beast. It was at most a small pet. But how could it speak? Senior White was glaring at Tun Yun with a grin on his face, and he was arguing with Tun Yun. Suddenly, Senior White noticed that Tun Yun had calmed down and even turned around to look ahead. Thus, Senior White turned around as well, and his eyes instantly lit up when he saw Yi Jing. Beauty Yi Jing, you've finally come to save me. As soon as it spoke with pleasant surprise, it immediately pounced towards her. Yi Jing was so frightened that she hurriedly blocked its face with both hands as she asked, Senior White, how can you speak? It wasn't the first time she'd gone to the cave abode, but she hadn't heard Senior White speak. Senior White was stunned when he heard this. Only now did he recall his master's warning, and he couldn't help but grin. I accidentally ate something wrong that day, so I spoke. Oh no, my master wouldn't really make me unable to speak forever, would he? When it thought of this, its joy of being saved instantly vanished. It moved closer to Yi Jing and said, Beauty Yi Jing, my master didn't allow me to speak and even tied a cloth rope around my mouth. He was afraid that I would scare you. Now that you've heard it, can you plead with my master later? All right. Is my master all right? Yi Jing stared at Lao Bai, but didn't see anything different. She was surprised, but still said, Don't worry, she's fine. She's just injured and is now recuperating in the cave. She asked us to come out and look for you when she saw that you were missing. Injured? Let's go back quickly. Lao Bai became nervous when he heard that. You didn't hurt your face, right? Hearing this, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched. They really didn't know if this white horse was worried that its owner would be injured, or was he worried about hurting his face? Yi Jing smiled. You'll know when you get back. She turned to the students behind her and said, Call out to them and tell them that we found them. Okay, the students answered and informed Guan Shilin's team, and the group headed to the academy. However, after they returned to the academy, the news that the two beasts could speak quickly spread among the students. For a time, Lao Bai's cloud-swallowing beast practically became the academy's new favorite. All of them specially went to Fengjiu's Immortal's Cave on Elixir Peak to see exactly how different the two beasts were compared to everyone's curiosity. Nietung was well aware of what was going on. He didn't know what breed that strange horse was, but he knew about that little meatball. Back then, it had swallowed the nascent soul of one of his nascent soul cultivators. That was a divine beast. How could it be a pet? Chapter 760. Because he knew that he wasn't welcome. Even if he went, he wouldn't be able to see her. In the past few days, the one who had the most comfortable time was Lao Bai. Almost all of the female students who came to visit were taken advantage of by him. Especially that mouth of his. The words that came out of his mouth made those female students burst with joy. Even if they knew that he was rubbing against their arms, they did not make a fuss about it. After all, in their eyes, he was just a beast, a horse. Being taken advantage of by him wasn't a big deal. After a few days of recuperation, coupled with his own medicine, Fengjiu's injuries gradually healed. On this day, she was wearing the green clothes of the alchemy department as she walked out of the cave. She heard Lao Bai praising a few female students of the spiritual academy. She smiled when she saw this scene, but she didn't walk over. Instead, she leaned against the cave's door and watched. Senior Sister Chun, I see that you're even prettier than yesterday. Senior Sister Wang, your complexion today is even better than yesterday. Your skin is so tender that water can be rubbed out. Senior Sister Li, your body smells so good. This is the natural fragrance of a girl. It smells so good. Hearing Lao Bai's words, the female students covered their mouths and laughed. Lao Bai, why are you so perverted? Even those playboys can't compare to your mouth. That's right. If you want to coax, you can even coax the birds on the tree. Did you learn from your master? Look at our academy's #1 beauty, Yi Jing. She's very close to your master. Many people in the academy are chasing after Yi Jing, but she doesn't like them. Instead, she likes your master. No way, I was born with this talent. Lao Bai grinned. Moreover, my master is extraordinarily handsome. He's so handsome that flowers bloom and horses ride when they see him. Beauty Yi Jing has good taste. Hearing this, the female students covered their mouths and laughed. Tun Yun, who was lying on the side, glanced at Lao Bai with disdain and turned its head to the side. Because it didn't like people touching it, those who wanted to touch it were scared away by it. On the other hand, Lao Bai, that perverted horse, kept moving closer to the female students. How embarrassing. When it turned its head, it saw its master standing at the side of the cave with a smile on her face. It immediately got up and ran towards her. When Lao Bai and the other female students saw this, they all turned around and saw Fengjiu standing there. The female students all stood up in embarrassment. Fengjiu, are you feeling better today? You should feel better now that you can get out of bed and walk around, right? Nodding his head, Fengjiu smiled. With beauties coming to visit me every day, it's hard for me not to be happy. As he spoke, he walked out with a smile and sat down by the stone table. He raised his eyebrows and smiled at the few of them. Shall we have a chat too? Being stared at by those smiling eyes, they couldn't help but feel embarrassed and hurriedly said, No, we've been out for a long time, so we have to go back first. Next time, I'll visit you again next time. All right then. Lao Bai, send these beautiful seniors off. She gestured to Lao Bai, who was beside her. Leave it to me. Lao Bai grinned and moved closer to one of them. Senior Chun, do you want me to help you walk? No, we can walk on our own. The few of them blushed and hurriedly waved their hands and walked away. Chapter 761. Seeing that they had left, Fengjiu stood up and said to the two beasts, I'm going to check on the injured mentors. You two stay here and don't run around. As she spoke, she took out 3 pills and gave 2 to the 2 beasts. The remaining one was given to Blackie, who was squatting by the cave. Master, you haven't recovered from your injuries and you're going out already? Aren't you going to recover before going? Lao Bai swallowed the pill and asked her, In order to save me, those mentors fought against nascent soul cultivators and were injured. It's one thing to be bettered in, but they're much better now. How can I not go and take a look? She threw out the rainbow-glazed feather and sat on it. Instead of going to the teaching area, she went to the main peak where the dean and the vice-dean were. Dressed in green, a figure sat on the 7-colored glazed feather. His legs hung naturally in the air as he floated towards the main peak. In the academy, some of the students who noticed the figure in the sky had complicated expressions, and some were puzzled. The scene a few days ago had caused quite a shock among the students. After all, they had never seen a situation where the entire academy's combat power was gathered to save a student. Because of their doubts, they tried to ask around. However, they only knew that Fengjiu was from a 9th-ranked country. Even if their families wanted to investigate, they couldn't find any information about him in a short time. However, because of that scene, they faintly knew that Fengjiu's origin was not simple. Somewhere in the academy, Nietung watched from afar as the figure flew towards the main peak on the rainbow-glazed feather. His gaze followed her until she disappeared from his sight. It seemed that she had recovered from her injuries. When she arrived at the main peak, she saw that other than the dean and the vice dean, young Master Mo-chan was also there. She smiled and said, "Dean, Vice Dean, young Master Mo-chan, I'm here today to thank you. I would also like to ask the Vice Dean to accompany me to visit the injured mentors." "Fengjiu, your injuries have recovered? Why didn't you rest for a few more days before getting out of bed?" The Vice Dean saw her and hurriedly gestured for her to sit down. "Yes, I've almost recovered from my injuries." She didn't stand on ceremony and sat down at their stone table. Seeing that Mo-chan had been staring at her since she entered, she couldn't help but smile. "Young Master Mo-chan, don't be too interested in me. I'm already taken." Mo-chan looked at her deeply, then looked away. He picked up his teacup and took a sip without saying anything. Seeing this, the dean and the vice dean couldn't help but exchange a glance. The dean smiled and said, "Fengjiu, the instructors have been nursed back to health by the Yao Peak and the Alchemy Department's instructors. Their bodies have more or less recovered. Only a few of them are seriously injured and can't get out of bed. If you want to see them, let the vice dean go with you." "All right." She stood up and looked at the vice president. "Then I'll have to trouble you." It's no trouble at all," said the vice chancellor with a smile. He rose to his feet and followed her outside. After they left, the director looked at Mo-chan. "Are you sure it's her? Do you want to bring her back to see your Shurzuin? However, with Fengjiu's personality, it'll be a bit difficult to bring her back to see your Shurzuin." Mo-chan shook his head. "No need. I'll personally go and report to Shurzuin." "She doesn't need to go. Does she still need to come back?" Chapter 762. Under the guidance of the vice president, Fengjiu visited the injured teachers and thanked them one by one, thanking them for risking their lives to save him. Just as he was about to leave, he saw Director Liu walking over with Director Liu's help. "Fengjiu," Director Liu called out, feeling a little embarrassed. "Director Liu, are you feeling better?" she asked with a smile. Seeing that his complexion was good, she knew that he had recovered well. "Much better. I heard that you were here, so I specially asked old Liu to help me over to thank you. That day, I scolded you so loudly, but you didn't care about the past and saved me. He was a little emotional, but also a little ashamed. Your temper is bad because of your poor health. That's understandable. No matter what, I still have to thank you. I heard that something happened to you, but I couldn't go and see you. I'm really sorry. It's just a small injury. I'm almost healed." She smiled and told him to take care of himself. After chatting for a while, she left with the vice president. When they were outside, she said goodbye to the vice president and left on her own. As for the academy's teachers and the others, she temporarily put this matter to heart. She would definitely have a chance to repay this favor in the future. As for the black market, she thought about it. There were only 3 people, so she could directly give them 3 bottles of medicine. It wasn't good to give out dozens of bottles of medicine at once, and it would definitely cause a stir. But for the black market, she could still give out 3 bottles. When she returned to the cave, she searched her space and found 3 bottles of medicine. In the evening, Guan came to see her and even brought her a basket of fruits. Xiao Jiu, look what I brought you." He smiled and sat down at the stone table with the basket. He threw one to each of the 3 beasties and shouted towards the cave. Fengjiu walked out and smiled when he saw him. "Brother, I wanted to ask old Bai to look for you. So you came over." "Oh? Why are you looking for me?" He looked at him in surprise and handed over a fruit. "I washed it. Eat it." Fengjiu took it and asked, "Where did you get it?" "The academy doesn't have this. I used my connections to get it back." He smiled and sat down at the table. "It's like this. The black market president and the others helped me that day. I want to give them some gifts as thanks. I want you to help me make a trip." "Sure, no problem. But you have to give me the dean's warrant or you won't be able to leave the academy." He asked, "What do you want to give them?" Fengjiu smiled. "Of course, we have to give them what they need the most." She gave and the others to give them to them at the same time and gave him the warrant to give them the next morning. Guanxilin wrote it down and put it away. He sat with her for a while before leaving. The next morning, he took the order and left the academy, heading towards the black market in the east of the city. And in the black market, these few days, people were secretly discussing. Because ever since that day when the guild master, the elder, and that golden core cultivator came back injured, the ghost doctor did not send anyone to send a word of thanks. This made them feel lucky that they did not go with him at that time, but at the same time, they were gloating. Luckily, we didn't go that day. Look, the president and Elder Gong are still pale after a few days of recuperation. I saw Elder Gong coughing and clutching his chest this morning. Chapter 763. That's right. The president and Elder Gong are fine, but little Lu is miserable. He's still lying in bed. I heard that his internal injuries are quite serious. It hurts when he moves, and he can't get out of bed even after 3 days of recuperation. He's so stupid. He went as soon as the president called. Didn't he see that everyone else didn't go? It's normal for Elder Gong to go. After all, he's the president's uncle. If the president went, how could he not go? Why would little Lu, a beginner golden core cultivator, join the fun? Isn't he asking for trouble? As they were talking, another nascent soul stage elder of the black market heard them and walked over. What are you all talking about? Don't you have anything to do? Seeing the nascent soul stage elder, everyone couldn't help but lower their heads. Just as they were about to leave, they saw the black market's steward rush in and go to the president's courtyard. Isn't that steward in front of the black market? Why is he inside? Look at how hurried he is. What's the matter? I'll go ask around. A cultivator said and left first. Not long after, the steward who went in earlier quickly walked out and went to the front again. This time, he led Guanxilin to the hall. The president and Elder Gong also arrived at the hall at this time. The cultivator who went to ask around quickly came back and said to everyone, "It seems that the ghost doctor sent him. He said he came to thank us. He's in the hall now." The president and Elder Gong are both there. It said that this man is the ghost doctor's sworn brother. Hearing this, everyone had different expressions, especially the nascent soul stage elder. He couldn't stand it anymore. He couldn't help but walk to the hall. Everyone behind him saw this and followed. In the hall, the president asked someone to serve tea and snacks. He smiled at Guanxilin and said, "How's the ghost doctor's injury now? Is it better?" Her injury is recovering very well. She could walk around 2 days ago. Because she remembered the help the 3 of you gave her that day, she felt a little better today. So, she asked me to come over. By the way, where's that person? Guanxilin looked at the 2 and asked the golden core stage cultivator, "Is he seriously injured?" Just as the president was about to speak, he saw the other people outside come in under the lead of the nascent soul stage elder. Seeing this, he smiled and said to everyone, "This is Guanxilin, young Master Guan." Then, he turned to Guanxilin and said, "This is another nascent soul stage elder of our black market. His surname is Li." Hearing this, Guanxilin stood up and saluted the nascent soul elder. "Nice to meet you. Young Master Guan, sit down, please." The nascent soul stage elder gestured and sat down at the side. He secretly sized up Guanxilin, guessing what kind of gift he would bring to express his gratitude on behalf of the ghost doctor. The president looked deeply at the nascent soul stage elder surnamed Li, then said to Guanxilin, "The one surnamed Lu, we all call him Little Lu. Because he's only a golden core stage cultivator, his injury is more serious. Although he's used medicine, he still can't get out of bed." "I see." He nodded and said, "It's okay. My sister guessed that the 3 of them might have suffered serious internal injuries, so she asked me to bring medicine for internal injuries." The ghost doctor is so thoughtful. I think the president, Elder Gong, and Little Lu will be very grateful. Elderly chuckled as he spoke, but his expression revealed a hint of mockery and schadenfreude. Chapter 764. Hearing this, Guanxilin glanced at Elder Li and understood what was going on. The president and Elder Gong glanced at Elder Li and smiled at Guanxilin. "Thank you for your concern, Ghost Doctor. We didn't expect you to think of us when you haven't recovered yet. We're really touched. Although the two's words sounded like empty words, they were truly what they thought. They went to save the ghost doctor because she was a level 1 black token holder and was in the vicinity of their black market. Since they knew she was in danger, of course they couldn't help but save her. Secondly, it was because they also hoped to build a good relationship with the ghost doctor. After all, for such a person, if it was normal times, she naturally wouldn't pay too much attention to them. But if they could help her when she was in danger, no matter what, she would have a good impression of them. Especially after seeing her kill a nascent soul stage cultivator on her own, they were even more certain that their actions that day were right. Because of this, they didn't dare to expect the ghost doctor to give them a gift of thanks. Because they didn't expect anything, they naturally weren't disappointed. Now that they heard Guanshelin say that the ghost doctor was concerned about their injuries and even brought them medicinal pills to treat internal injuries, they were naturally extremely grateful. The ghost doctor's medicine, even if it was just a small medicine, was priceless, not to mention a medicine for internal injuries. Even though their black market had plenty of medicine for internal injuries, it couldn't compare to the ghost doctor's medicine. President, I wonder if you could take me to see Senior Liu? Guanshelin took a sip of tea and asked with a smile. Of course, he's in the backyard. The president and Elder Gong stood up together and gestured to Guanshelin. Please. Guanshelin stood up and nodded slightly to the others before following the two of them. Seeing them leave, Elder Li didn't follow, and the others didn't follow either. They all despised him in their hearts, but didn't say anything and left. When they arrived at a courtyard at the back, Guanshelin saw a pale-faced man lying on the bed. It was the golden core cultivator who had gone to the spirit palace that day. Guanshelin immediately helped him up and took out some medicine from his space. Take my sister's special medicine for internal injuries. It will only take half a day to recover by 50%. By tomorrow, you will be fully recovered. The cultivator recognized Guanshelin. Seeing the president and the elders nod, he took the medicine and said to Guanshelin, Thank you. I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for saving my sister despite knowing that there were 8 golden core cultivators and 4 nascent soul cultivators. He stood up and bowed to the president, Elder Gong, and the 3 people sitting by the bed. Thank you for your help. Actually, we didn't help much. Elder Gong chuckled. Hearing this, Guanshelin didn't say anything else. He just handed the medicine to the 2 of them and said, Please accept this in case you need it in the future. This medicine can save your life at a critical moment. All right, please thank the ghost doctor on our behalf. The 2 of them smiled and said. However, as soon as they finished speaking, they saw a strange smile on his face and couldn't help but be startled. The medicine for internal injuries isn't a gift from my sister to the 3 of you. The gift is here, Guanshelin said with a smile, and took out 3 bottles of medicine. Chapter 765. This bottle is for the president. He's at the peak of the golden core realm. If he takes this bottle, he can break through the threshold of the peak of the golden core realm and become a nascent soul realm cultivator. As soon as Guanshelin finished speaking, he saw the president's eyes widen in shock. He was so excited that his body trembled. This is the one that can help you advance. Yes, you're all core figures of the black market. Naturally, you know about the black market. Those who have a good relationship with my sister have all received this advancement medicine from her. As he spoke, he put a bottle of medicine in the president's hand. I know, of course I know. That's a priceless treasure. That's a treasure that everyone would fight over. I didn't expect that I actually have one too. I have hope of entering the nascent soul realm. The president was so excited that he couldn't control himself. God knows how long he had been stuck at the peak of the golden core realm. For so many years, he hadn't been able to break through. He thought that his cultivation in this life would reach its end. Unexpectedly, this bottle is for Senior Liu. He handed the other bottle to the middle-aged man sitting on the bed and said, Senior is a cultivator at the early stage of the golden core realm. After you fully recover, take this medicine and you should be able to reach the peak of the golden core realm. I have one too. The middle-aged cultivator sitting on the bed looked at Guan Shilin excitedly. "You're really giving such a precious thing to me?" Guan Shilin smiled and said, "Of course. Since Senior was able to save my sister under such circumstances, I will naturally give you a share of the reward." He took the bottle of medicine in his hand. He was so excited that his hands trembled slightly. He felt that it was a bit unreal. He was in a daze and couldn't recover for a long time. "Elder Gong, this is for you." He smiled and handed over the last bottle. "My sister said that this medicine can't help you break through the nascent soul realm, but can make you a master at the peak of the nascent soul realm." Good, 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 good. He took the bottle with both hands and said, "Master at the peak of the nascent soul realm. If I were to cultivate, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to reach that level without a few decades. Now that I have this medicine, I can become a master at the peak of the nascent soul realm overnight." I've. At the end, his voice choked up. Who would have thought that they would receive such a great reward for their rescue? "My younger sister is studying alchemy in the academy. In the future, there will be many things that she will need your help with. Please take care of her." He cupped his hands and said with a smile, No, it's our honor to be able to work for the ghost doctor. If that's the case, I'll take my leave first." As he spoke, he turned to look at the middle-aged cultivator sitting on the bed, who had yet to recover from his shock. He said to the guild master and Elder Gong, "I hope no one in the black market covets Senior Lu's medicine." Hearing this, the cultivator who had been sitting on the bed in a daze finally came to his senses. He looked at Guan Shilin in astonishment, then looked at the president and Elder Gong. The president and Elder Gong knew that he was worried that Xiao Lu's potion would be taken away by another Yuanying stage elder. So they said solemnly, "Don't worry, Child Guan. With the two of us here, no one in the black market would dare to do such a thing." "What is it?" Chapter 766. "Oh, it's elderly." The president smiled and said, "Why are you here?" At this time, Elder Lee's gaze landed on the medicine bottle in the hands of the middle-aged cultivator who was sitting on the bed. "I wanted to come over and see how little Lu's injuries were recovering, but I heard you guys talking about something." Perhaps sensing his gaze, the cultivator's heart skipped a beat as he recalled Guan Shilin's words from before. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous as he tightened his grip on the bottle. "Oh, it's young Master Guan who gave little Lu some medicine for his internal injuries and told him to keep it carefully." The president smiled and gestured. "Little Lu, why aren't you keeping the medicine?" "Yes," the middle-aged cultivator replied. He lowered his eyes and carefully put the medicine into his space. Hearing this, Elderly secretly curled his lips. "It's just a bottle of medicine for internal injuries. What's so special about it?" He immediately said, "I just came over to take a look. Seeing that little Lu's complexion is recovering well, I'm relieved that he'll be able to get out of bed and walk around in a few days." He nodded and said to Guan Shilin, "Young Master Guan, if you have time in the future, please come to the black market often so that we can play host to you." Guan Shilin smiled meaningfully and said, "Of course." With that, he cupped his hands and bid farewell. "I'll see you out, young Master Guan," the president said and nodded to his uncle before personally seeing Guan Shilin out. When Guan Shilin returned to the academy, he first went to Fengjiu's place to inform her that the matter had been settled. He handed the warrant back to her and then returned to his own courtyard. With Fengjiu's body recovering, her spiritual power had reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She wasn't in a hurry to improve her spiritual power, so she threw herself into refining pills wholeheartedly. Ever since she started refining pills, outsiders were forbidden to enter her pill mountain. Occasionally, only Guan Shilin and Yi Jing would come and take a look, but seeing that she was refining pills in her cave, they didn't have any plans and went back to cultivate. As the days passed, some of the pills she refined were successful, some turned into poison pills, and some turned into unknown strange pills. However, the only thing she was sure of was that her cultivation in alchemy had also improved after each failure. Towards the end, there were almost no poison pills left. There were only one or two strange pills that would occasionally appear. It was also because Feng Jiu had always been refining pills in her cave and rarely walked around the academy. Gradually, the incidents she had caused when she first entered the academy were forgotten by everyone. It was as if she didn't exist, and no one deliberately mentioned her again. Except for Niet Tung, Xiao Han, Guan Shilin, and Yi Jing, it was as if everyone had forgotten about her. She faded out of the sight of the students, and even her beasts were the same. They obediently guarded outside the cave and didn't wander outside. Until one day, when she was refining pills, she walked out with dirty clothes and muttered, "No more, I've used them all. If I don't have any more spiritual herbs, I'll have to exchange them with contribution points. However, I don't have many contribution points left. Sai, are you forcing me to go out and earn more?" Chapter 768. So it's young Master Feng. Young Master Feng, I'm an elder of the guild. My surname is Li. His eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled, his expression flattering and fawning. I was the one who hosted your brother the last time he came. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled slightly and nodded. So it's Elderly. Nice to meet you. At this time, Elderly waved his hand to the manager. You can go to the front. I'll bring young Master Feng in to see the guild leader. Yes. The steward made a sound of acknowledgement before walking out. In his heart, he was wondering why Elderly's attitude had changed so much. Young Master Feng, please come in. Elderly made an inviting gesture and led the way. Seeing this, Feng Jiu followed in. Young Master Feng, please take a seat. I'll have someone invite the guild leader. As he spoke, he ordered a guard to bring the guild leader over. Then he went in to receive her. Only the heavens knew how much he regretted it now. Since the day Guan Shilin sent the gift of thanks, in a short month, the guild leader broke through from the peak of the Golden Core stage to the nascent soul stage. His clan uncle also broke through to the peak of the nascent soul stage. Xiao Lu also broke through from the early stage of the Golden Core stage to the peak of the nascent soul stage. If he couldn't guess the reason for these successive breakthroughs, he wouldn't have been able to get the position of an elder of the black market. Every time he thought about how the guild leader broke through and became a nascent soul stage cultivator, his strength was comparable to his own. His clan uncle, Elder Gong, was originally one level lower than him, but now he was 2 levels higher than him and became a nascent soul stage cultivator. At this level, they could already apply to be transferred to a higher level black market guild, but they still stayed here. Wasn't it because the ghost doctor was still here? Although he heard that the ghost doctor's medicine was a treasure that everyone fought over, he didn't see it for himself. He didn't think much of it at first, but after seeing the guild leader and the other 2 break through, he was both envious and regretful. If he knew that he could get such benefits, he would have gone that day. He just didn't know if there would be such a good opportunity in the future. Young Master Feng, I wonder what brings you here today. If there's anything you need me for, just say the word. I won't hesitate to go through fire and water for you. Elderly said expectantly. Feng Jiu smiled, but did not say anything. On the other side, upon hearing the guard's report, the president and Elder Gong, who knew that the ghost doctor had arrived, were overjoyed. They immediately headed to the front hall, but before they entered, they heard Elder Li's words. The uncle and nephew looked at each other and walked in. I didn't know young Master Feng was coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. He walked to the main seat and sat down. Then, he looked at Feng Jiu and said gratefully, I've always wanted to find an opportunity to thank young Master Feng. It's just that it's difficult to meet young Master Feng. Today, I finally have the chance. Feng Jiu took a sip of tea and smiled. There's no need to thank me. In fact, I came here today to buy some elixirs. I wonder if President can help me find them today. I wonder what kind of medicinal herbs young Master Feng wants. Chapter 769. Feng Jiu nodded and asked about their injuries. Thanks to young Master Feng, our strength has increased and we've recovered from our injuries. Little Lou is out on a mission. If he knows you're here, he'll be so excited," the president said with a smile. Elder Gong, who was on the side, also chatted with Fengjiu with a smile. Only Elder Li, who was on the side, couldn't interrupt even if he wanted to. He sat there awkwardly. "All right, then I'll come back in the evening." She got up and said goodbye, planning to walk around the city. "All right, we'll send young Master Feng off," the president and Elder Gong said as they walked her out. She walked around the city and bought a lot of things. Just as she was about to go to the black market, she saw a treasure house not far away and walked towards it. "Young master, what do you need?" the shopkeeper asked with a smile. His gaze swept past Fengjiu's green robe and landed on the feather at his waist. Noticing the shopkeeper's gaze, Fengjiu didn't mind. After walking around, his gaze landed on something on the counter. He knocked on the counter and said, "Bring this up." The shopkeeper looked at the item on the counter and said, "All right, please wait a moment." As he spoke, he took out the item on the counter and placed it on a piece of cloth. He said, "This is a lingxi horn. There's one left. Young master, take a look." Fengjiu took a look and nodded. "I'll take it." Hearing this, the shopkeeper smiled and narrowed his eyes. "We have all kinds of things in our building, especially on the second floor. They're all treasures. If young master is interested, you could take a look." Hearing this, she nodded and walked up to the second floor. When she reached the second floor, she saw an open white robe. When she saw the white robe, she inexplicably thought of Mo Chen's heavenly silk robe that she washed and ruined. After thinking for a while, she pointed at the white robe and said, "I'll take that too. Young master really has good taste. This is a heavenly silk robe. It's warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It's as light as a feather. There's only one of it in our building." The shopkeeper said as he asked someone to take the robe down and fold it properly downstairs. After walking around, he didn't see anything else that caught his eye, so he asked the shopkeeper to pay the bill. After paying the bill, the shopkeeper even gave Fengjiu some trinkets as a bonus, hoping that he would come again next time. However, when he came downstairs, he saw two men and a woman surrounding the waiter and talking. When the waiter saw the shopkeeper come down, he hurriedly went forward and said, "Shopkeeper, this lady said that she took a fancy to the heavenly silkworm robe and refused to let me pack it up." Hearing that, the shopkeeper looked at the three people. He didn't recognize the two behind them, but he recognized the woman. He smiled and said, "So it's the young miss of the He family." "Shopkeeper, I took a fancy to the heavenly silkworm robe before, but I didn't have enough money on me, so I went back to get it. How about you just turn around and sell it to someone else?" The woman stared at the shopkeeper with slight anger. Young miss please calm down. You didn't tell me to keep it, and you didn't pay a deposit. Naturally, I didn't know that young miss wanted it. Coincidentally, this young master also took a fancy to it. Then did he pay the bill?" "He did," the shopkeeper said with a smile. He walked up and personally wrapped up the robe, then handed it to Fengjiu along with the rhinoceros horn. Fengjiu smiled. When he was about to put it away, the woman stopped him. Chapter 770. Upon hearing this, the girl seemed to have just noticed that her hand was pressing on the young man's hand. She quickly retracted her hand and looked at Fengjiu, asking, "Sell me this robe. This is what I saw this morning." "I'm sorry, I want to give it away. I'm not selling it." She smiled and kept the robe. At the same time, the two men behind her who had been silent all this, while silently sized up Fengjiu. Seeing that he was wearing the School of Stars and Clouds uniform and the rainbow glazed feather at his waist, their gazes couldn't help but waver. Just as the girl was about to speak, one of them stopped her. "Little sister, since this young master is buying it, let's find another one. There's no need to make a fuss over a robe." Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at the man and smiled. He was about to walk out when he was stopped by the man. "Young master, please wait." The man walked forward and clasped his hands in greeting, asking, "May I ask if you are Fengjiu from the alchemy department?" "I don't think I know you." Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "Haha, you don't know me, but I've heard of you. As a new student, you're not only a popular figure among the new students, but you're even more popular than the top 10 students. I've always wanted to make friends with you, but I never had the chance. Why don't I be the host, and treat you to a drink at the restaurant in front. At this point, he seemed to remember something and said, I forgot to introduce myself. My surname is He, and I'm a disciple of the He clan, one of the 8 great clans in Star Cloud City. No, I have something to do. I can't stay for long. He waved his hand and took a step forward. The girl angrily blocked his way. How can you be so ungrateful? My brother wants to treat you because he thinks highly of you. You. She glared at him angrily, but when she met the young man's deep, bottomless eyes, she couldn't bring herself to say the rest of her words. Miss, please make way. Fengzio's voice was gentle and indifferent. A smile appeared on his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. Seeing this, the man immediately pulled the woman aside. Little sister, don't be rude. He growled. Just as he was about to speak, Fengzio had already walked out. Not long after, he disappeared into the crowd. Brother, why are you being so courteous? That person really doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Furthermore, he even bought my heavenly silkworm robe. She stomped her foot angrily. The man on the other side was also a disciple of the 8 great clans. At this moment, he walked up and said to the woman, This person is not simple. Even if you can't befriend him, you can't provoke him. I don't see anything special about him. The woman pursed her lips and said, 2 months ago, the principal of the School of Stars and Clouds and the other instructors went to rescue the person called Fengzio. Our clan only found out that he came from a 9th-ranked country, and the other clues were cut off. In short, it's best not to provoke this person. The man said as he took the lead and walked out. Did you hear that? Avoid him if you see him in the future. The man surnamed, he also instructed before following the people in front of him out. Oomph. The woman stomped her foot and harumphed. She turned around and glared at the shopkeeper who was standing at the side before running off with the people in front of her. Chapter 771. When she arrived at the black market, the president and Elder Gong were already waiting there. Elderly was also with them. Seeing Elderly, Fengzio couldn't help but want to laugh. Although she knew that her medicine was a treasure that cultivators would fight over, she didn't expect that Elderly, who had lived for so long, would actually be so clingy. She did have medicine, but she wouldn't give it out so casually. If you wanted her things, it was impossible. Young Master Feng, the things you wanted have been prepared. They're all in here, the president said and handed over a spatial ring. Fengzio raised her eyebrows. This is a spatial magic tool. Hee, an unremarkable little thing. Just take it as a gift for young Master Feng to play with. Compared to her helping them advance, this spatial ring was really not worth mentioning. Hearing this, Fengzio nodded. All right, then I'll accept it. Let's settle the bill. Thus, the president brought her to the back to settle the bill. Because it was something she wanted, those spiritual herbs could be said to be given to her at their original price. The price was much lower than outside. For this kind of small favor, he would give it to her in passing. Young Master Feng, I had someone prepare a banquet. I want to invite young Master Feng to a meal. No, it's getting late. I have to rush back before the sky turns dark. Next time, even if you don't treat me, I'll make you treat me. She smiled, put away the things, and bid farewell. Seeing this, the president and Elder Gong didn't urge her to stay. They just nodded and sent her out of the black market. Elderly wanted to speak a few times, but because the president and Elder Gong were present, he was too embarrassed to speak. In the end, he could only watch her leave. After returning to the academy, Fengzio buried herself in pill refining again. If she encountered something she didn't understand, she would ask the 2 alchemists. In addition to the results of her own research, her progress in pill refining could be said to be 1,000 miles a day. After another month, her pill refining room finally quieted down. After taking a bath, she walked out of the cave, feeling refreshed. After a few months of research, he had almost grasped the Tao of alchemy. Recently, he had refined a lot of pills, but he had never tried them out, nor had he taken them out to sell. Now, it was time to take a break. However, just as she was about to find Yi Jing and her brother for a chat, she bumped into the vice director. Fengzio, I was just about to look for you. Is something the matter, Vice Academy head? She was slightly surprised as she sat on the flying feather. She was curious about his serious expression. "Yes, come with me," he said as he walked toward the main peak. Fengjiu followed closely behind him. When she arrived at the main peak, she saw that the principal was also present. She bowed and said, "Greetings, principal." "Sit," because there was no one else around, only the three of them. He directly said, "I called you here because I have something to tell you." She sat down at the table and said, "Dean, please speak. Since you're holding the Azure Edge sword, you've naturally heard of Tianyuan Palace. It seems that Tianyuan Palace's palace master, Chu Batian, has some relationship with you, right?" Hearing this, her eyes moved slightly and she nodded. "Yes, he's my master." Although he hadn't taught her anything, he had left her many good things. In her space, some of the things were her master's lifelong collection, while others were originally in her space. Chapter 772. Fengjiu didn't say anything and just listened quietly. The headmaster would not mention this for no reason. They had all seen her possessing the Azure Edge sword that day, but none of them chose to say anything about it, nor did they leak any information about it. Now that he mentioned it a few months later, something must have happened that she did not know about. The Tianyuan Palace is filled with vicious people who kill people like flies. There are also some rogue cultivators who are rejected by the righteous path. They have all become members of the Tianyuan Palace. However, after Chu Batian became a mystery, the Tianyuan Palace became a group of dragons without a leader. About a month ago, there were rumors that the people of the Heavenly Yuan Palace had gathered. They were divided into two factions to fight for the position of Palace Master, which led to some fights over territory. We only received the news half a month ago, but there were many people who received the news before us. He paused for a moment before continuing. Chu Batian is a reckless person. Back when he was in charge of the Heavenly Yuan Palace, he restrained his subordinates very well. Now that the Heavenly Yuan Palace is lacking a leader, since you're the owner of the Qingfeng sword, I want to ask you, what are your plans for this matter? Dean, do you want me to take care of this mess? She asked with a smile. Haha, it's not like that. The Tianyuan Palace is a great power. Every cultivator's battle prowess isn't inferior to our academy's teachers. It's a mess, but it's also a big piece of meat. I'm worried that after a long time, this piece of meat will be targeted by other powers and taken for themselves. When that time comes, it will inevitably lead to uncontrollable trouble. I promised my master that I would reorganize the Tianyuan Palace. However, I know very little about the Tianyuan Palace. I didn't expect that there would be two powers fighting in the dark. She smiled and said, I will definitely take over, but I need to ask the dean for someone. Someone? Who? The dean was startled. Even the vice dean was surprised. Protector Xianghua. Her eyes flickered as she uttered these four words. Protector Xianghua? The two of them were startled and said, We don't know this person. How can you ask us for him? Fengjiu smiled and said, It's all right, as long as I know him. She smiled and stood up, saying, I'll leave first. Go back and prepare well. She took a step out, but suddenly stopped and walked back. Dean, I haven't seen that fairy-like Mo Chun lately. Hearing this, the two of them were startled. He went back because he had something to do. He'll be back in a while. Oh, so that's how it is. I have something here. I'll have to trouble you to pass it to him. Just say that it's my compensation. As she spoke, she took out the wrapped heavenly silkworm garment from her space and placed it on the table. All right. The dean nodded. He was puzzled. Could it be that the two of them already knew each other? The next morning, Fengjiu woke up naturally and tidied up. She left White and Tun Yun at Elixir Peak and left the academy. She planned to go to the place where the students of the academy had gone to train and get Xianghua out first. Almost no one knew about her departure. Even Niet Tung, who had been paying attention to her whereabouts, only knew that she was no longer in the academy a few days after she left. Chapter 773. Brother, let's talk nicely. How can you do such a disgraceful thing? Brother, at most I won't ask your young lady for a reward, but you can't do this. Do this. Bah! Reward? Go to hell and ask the king of hell for it. We're already being generous by leaving your corpse intact. Oomph. If it were young master today, your blood would have splattered everywhere. Brother, I don't want any reward, okay? Just let me go. Just treat it as doing a good deed. Let you go? Don't worry, I'll let you go. Fengjiu, who was not far away, leaped lightly and landed on a tree to watch. She saw that the two burly men were digging a hole in the forest. One of them even jumped in to test the depth of the hole. Finally, he came out and placed a young man in green beside him into the hole. Then, he began to fill the hole with soil. Buried alive? She raised her eyebrows. She felt that the disheveled young man looked somewhat familiar. Brother, let's talk about it. Don't shovel the soil first. Brother, can you not put soil on my head? Seeing this scene, Fengjiu could not help but smile. She remembered who this young man was. It was the man called Bai Xiao, Lao Bai's former master. However, she did not expect to meet him again after so long. She casually plucked 2 leaves and shot them with spiritual power from her fingers. They hit the 2 burly men on their wrists. They cried out in pain and clutched their wrists as they looked around and shouted. Who? Who is it? Come out. You're burying my friend. Fengjiu crossed her arms and leaned on a tree branch. She looked at Bai Xiao, who was half buried in the soil, and smiled at him. Long time no see, Bai Xiao. You've made yourself look so pathetic. Kid, how dare you use a hidden weapon to hurt people? One of them saw that it was a young man and immediately scolded him. I think you don't want to live anymore. Fengjiu plucked 2 more leaves and said, Are you sure you don't want to leave? This time, my 2 leaves won't be aimed at your wrists. When the other person saw this, he looked down and saw that it was really a leaf that had hurt them. He was shocked and quickly pulled the person next to him away, but Fengjiu stopped him. Wait a minute. Didn't you say you wanted us to leave? We were just following orders. We didn't want to bury your friend. The 2 of them were shocked. Their legs were trembling and their faces were pale. To be able to use a leaf as a hidden weapon, how high was his cultivation? In any case, the 2 of them couldn't use the leaves as hidden weapons. They weren't a match for this young man. Pull him up before we go. She gestured with her chin. Oh, yes, yes, yes. The 2 of them hurriedly responded and used their uninjured hands to pull up Bai Xiao, who was half buried in the sand, before running away as if they were being chased by some poisonous snake or ferocious beast. You're Fengjiu? Bai Xiao hesitated before calling out Fengjiu's name. Yes, it seems like you still remember me. She nodded and smiled. Bai Xiao, what happened to you? How did you get yourself in such a sorry state? As she spoke, she untied the ropes on his body. It's a long story. Chapter 774. Oh, Bai, it's a long story. She smiled and shook her head. She looked at the dirt on his body and said, There's a stream not far ahead. Do you want to take a bath? Change your clothes? That's a good idea. We could talk after I've washed up. It's really rude of me to be like this. He was a little embarrassed. He followed the direction Fengjiu had pointed out and found the stream. He quickly took off his clothes and jumped into the stream to take a bath. Fengjiu did not follow him. Instead, he caught a pheasant and roasted it while he was bathing. It smells so good. Fengjiu, I've been hungry for an entire day. They haven't given me any food. He changed his clothes, and his hair was still dripping with water. He sat down beside Fengjiu and drooled as he stared at the pheasant roasting over the fire. Come, have some wine first. She took out a small jar of wine from her space and poured him half a bowl. It's enough, it's enough. He held the bowl with both hands. I don't really know how to drink. If you don't know how to drink, then you can't drink on an empty stomach. How about this? Wait a moment, this pheasant is almost done. She smiled and began to add some seasonings. She asked, Why are you always wandering around whenever I see you? Where are you going? I don't want to go anywhere. I was just chased out by my family. They told me to come out and gain experience. But I kept running into obstacles. He held the wine in both hands and stared at the pheasant as he spoke. He told her everything that had happened to him in the past few days. Oh, you're from a family of beast masters? She was slightly surprised, but immediately understood. That's right. If he wasn't from that family, he wouldn't have been able to get a strange horse like Old Bai. Yes, but it's useless. I'm not good at martial arts, so I only know how to tame beasts. But sometimes accidents happen when it comes to taming beasts. For example, I can't tame a strange horse like Old White. For example, the pet beast of the young lady, just now, for some reason, it jumped around and scratched its master's new clothes. It even scratched the back of its master's hand until it bled. Fengjiu cut a chicken leg with a knife and gave it to him. In other words, you have nowhere to go now? Well, my family won't let me go back. They want me to make a name for myself outside. However, making a name for myself is too difficult. I'm afraid that I'll lose my little life. He swallowed his saliva and took the drumstick. Because it was slightly hot and he used a leaf as a cushion to keep it warm, he took a bite. The rich aroma of the meat spread in his mouth, making his eyes turn red. Fengjiu, you treat me too well. You don't know that family asked me to tame beasts, but they gave me vegetables and steam buns to eat every day. I was so hungry that I lost a lot of weight. Yesterday, they didn't give me any food, and today they caught me and buried me alive. They really went too far. Do you really know how to tame beasts? She was also very doubtful. After all, when they first met, he was thrown off the back of a horse by Lao Bai. Of course I can, it's just that there are some accidents occasionally, but I really know how to tame beasts, really. As if afraid that he wouldn't believe him, he emphasized again. Since you have nowhere to go, do you want to come with me? She was like a big wolf with a big tail, smiling innocently. The place I'm going to this time has many beasts. You can use it to practice. How about it? Do you want to come? Hearing this, he didn't immediately agree. Instead, he looked at her with a serious face and asked, "If you see me being chased by a beast and have nowhere to run, will you save me?" Chapter 775. Just like that, what was originally a one-person journey became a two-person journey. Fengjiu led him to sit on Flying Feather as they headed towards the training forest. On the way, she told him about Senior White. One day later, in the morning, the two of them arrived at the boundary of the forest. Looking at the forest, she couldn't help but think about how she had escaped here. After escaping from the Hall of Hell, she didn't know how long she had walked and how many mountains she had crossed before she reached this place. Thinking about how she had been caught by the uncle in the end, she couldn't help but shake her head. Everything was fated. As long as it was fated, no matter how they avoided or escaped, they would still bump into each other, and they would still walk together. Fengjiu, there's a boundary here. We can't go in. Why don't we go somewhere else? This place looks really creepy. Bai Xiao looked at the stone tablet at the side that was engraved with the words, "Important training ground, boundary protection, vicious villains, ferocious beasts everywhere." Seeing those words, he couldn't help but want to retreat. What if he couldn't get out of such a dangerous place? We came here. Moreover, this place isn't a place where you can enter and leave as you wish. She smiled and waved the two white jade tokens in her hand. Other than ferocious beasts, there are also some villains caught by the three major sects and the School of Stars and Clouds. However, they can't get out without this thing. They can only be trapped inside and become a dangerous training ground for the three major sects and the School of Stars and Clouds. You said that the person you're looking for is also inside? You said that the people trapped here were all villains. Hee hee. There are exceptions to everything. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go in. She put a hand on his shoulder and pushed him in without giving him a chance to hesitate. Their bodies seemed to pass through a layer of air. The air was slightly distorted and they were squeezed in. She was also a little curious about this boundary. After all, she had entered without a jade token the last time. Fengjiu, this place is eerie, and the presence gives me a very dangerous feeling. The man who had no power to protect himself nervously grabbed Fengjiu's red coat. He couldn't be blamed for being timid. Even though he came from a family of familiars, his familiars would always have people protecting them. Even in the extremely dangerous Dire Beast Forest, he wasn't afraid, because he knew that if there was any danger, the people around him would definitely protect him from any harm. However, it was different here. Although Fengjiu was familiar with him, They had only met twice. Who knew if he would run away if he was in danger? Feng Jiu didn't know what he thought of her. If he knew, he would have kicked him twice. Seeing Zhao Hai's pale face, Feng Jiu couldn't help but chuckle. He patted Zhao Hai's shoulder and said, "You need to train your courage. Since we're looking for people, I'll help you train your courage. There's no need, right? I'm just a beast tamer, not a warrior. There's really no need." He waved his hand. However, how could he resist Feng Jiu's persistence? The burly man patted by Zhao's shoulder with a large knife in his hand, making a pung, pung, pung sound. He was so shocked that his face turned pale. "This doesn't mean I'll surrender to you guys, right?" She rubbed her chin and looked at them as she asked. You don't know because you're new here. There are rules here. If you follow the boss, you'll have meat to eat. Even if you're trapped here, you'll definitely be able to get out one day and kill them all." "Oh, I see. Then of course we'll surrender. Who wouldn't want to suck up to someone powerful? Isn't that right?" she said with a smile, her gaze landing on the large knife resting on by Zhao's shoulder. Chapter 777. Hearing this, the burly man moved his saber away and said to the two of them, "Let's go." As he spoke, they surrounded Feng Jiu and by Xiao in the middle to prevent them from escaping. "Wait," Feng Jiu shouted. "Are you going back on your word?" The burly man glared at him fiercely. "Of course not. I was just thinking that since it's our first visit, we should at least bring some gifts for Big Brother, right?" She smiled and pointed to a place not far away. "There's a wild boar we hunted earlier over there. Let's carry it together." "I didn't expect you to be so tactful." One of them sneered and strode over. Not long after, he carried the wild boar that Bai Xiao had hunted over. The few of them followed him all the way into the depths. On the way, Bai Xiao tugged at Feng Jiu's sleeve and winked at him, asking what to do next. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled disapprovingly. He lowered his voice and whispered in his ear, "Play it by ear. Don't be afraid." "What are the two of you chattering about?" Someone shouted from behind. "My little brother is timid. I was just telling him not to be afraid. Now that we're here, there's someone protecting us." Feng Jiu turned around and smiled. His dazzling smile made the burly man mutter under his breath. He was indeed a flower picker. His face was even more beautiful than a woman's. Under their lead, the few of them went deeper into the depths of the forest and walked on the path that was covered with arrays. Her eyes flickered. There were a lot of talents here. The arrays here were ingenious. One after another, it was somewhat beyond her expectations. "Who set up this array? It's so ingenious. Hey, I didn't expect you to have such good eyesight. You can see the ingenuity of this array at once." A burly man behind them grinned. "This array was set up by Big Brother. It's because of this array that we can move around more freely. Moreover, those ferocious beasts can't do anything to us." "Oh, I see. Then Boss is the strongest person here?" she asked. "The average strength here is around Great Soul Master. There are also peak Great Soul Masters. Boss seems to be a peak Great Soul Master. However, I heard Boss say that Xianghua is also here. His strength is not only at Great Soul Master, but it is said that he is savage by nature. Boss is thinking of ways to rope him in." "Shut up. Why are you talking so much to him?" The big man in front turned around and shouted. He glared at the big man behind him. "We're all on the same side, so what's the harm in talking about it?" Feng Jiu smiled disapprovingly and followed them. An hour later, when they passed through the last formation, they finally saw burly men standing or sitting on both sides. When those people saw the two new faces, their gazes also started to size up the two of them. Most of their gazes stopped on the handsome young man in red clothes. Seeing the young man's face that was even more beautiful than a woman's, a few of the big men's gazes flickered. They didn't hide the interest in their eyes at all as they stared at Feng Jiu. "Deshan, where did these two brats come from? Where did you get them?" A big man raised his chin and asked. Chapter 778. Let these two kids meet the boss. They look like weak chickens. Dashin, why do you bring random people to our place? The burly man who spoke stood up and looked at Fengjiu and Bai Xiao. His interested gaze swept past Bai Xiao and landed on Fengjiu, who was dressed in a dazzling red robe. Kid, you're a rapist. With your physique, are you raping other people? Or are you being raped? Ha ha ha! When the surrounding people heard this, they all burst into laughter. Their eyes fell on Fengjiu and lingered on him meaningfully. You're too much of a bully. Bai Xiao shouted angrily. She clenched her fists and glared at them, but she shrank back timidly beside Fengjiu. So what if we're bullying you? Don't you know that newcomers are always bullied? The burly man cast a sidelong glance at the two of them and suddenly reached out to lift Fengjiu's chin. Don't tell me you've been raping too many girls. Look, even your face is prettier than a girl's. Ouch. Before he could finish his teasing words, he sucked in a breath of cold air and screamed. The surrounding people were also shocked and stood up one after another. They saw Fengjiu playing with the dagger in her hand and slowly wiping away the blood on it. At her feet, she stepped on a bloody finger. Speak if you want to, but don't point at me with your dirty finger. Look, I accidentally lost my finger, she said casually and raised her eyebrows at the burly man. Kid, you're courting death. The burly man shouted angrily. Enduring the pain of his broken finger, he clenched his other hand and punched Fengjiu. His speed was fierce, and his strength was not weak. Fengjiu pushed Bai Xiao back and lifted her leg to kick him. A red figure flashed, and a cold light flashed. The burly man fell to the ground instantly. Blood seeped out of his neck, and his body twitched on the ground. He stared at Fengjiu. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. In the end, he couldn't breathe, and his body stiffened on the ground. He died. Seeing that the young man killed a great spiritual master in one move, the few people who originally wanted to step forward hesitated. They stared at him with vigilant eyes and sized him up. The surrounding people who were laughing also quieted down. Everyone's gazes fell on him. Some were surprised, but some understood. As for the burly men who brought Fengjiu and Bai Xiao here, they were stunned. After a while, they came back to their senses. They could not help but retreat and widen the distance between them. Don't be afraid. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. She wiped her dagger and smiled innocently. Actually, I don't like this kind of fighting and killing. It's just that sometimes no one listens to me when I talk, so I can only use violence. Don't take offense. The surroundings were quiet. No one responded to her. They only stared at the red-clothed young man as if he was a monster. They were all extremely evil people and had killed many people. At this moment, they deeply understood that a person who took people's lives while talking and laughing was far more terrifying than anyone else present. Just as everyone was silent and the atmosphere in the air became heavy and oppressive, the wooden door in the treehouse opened with a creak. Chapter 779. Fengjiu thought that the person who could be called boss by these brawny men would at least be a tall and sturdy man, or a cultivator with a stout physique, or a bloodthirsty murderer with a fiendish expression. However, the person who walked out greatly exceeded her expectations. It was a young man who looked to be in his early 20s. He wore a student uniform that she didn't know which Academy of Stars and Clouds he got from. His temperament looked so gentle and harmless, and his smiling eyes gave people the same feeling. However, in Fengjiu's eyes, this person was like a smiling tiger. The cultivation of a peak great soul master seemed harmless, but it was fatal. No wonder he could become the boss of these people at such a young age. Obviously, without some methods, he wouldn't be able to shake these vicious and evil people. How should I address you? The man stood on the treehouse and looked down at Fengjiu, who was wearing a red dress that was as dazzling as the sun. Without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, the brawny man who led the way hurriedly said, "Boss, this brat said he's some flower thief, Jade-Faced Fox." "Yes, that's right. I'm a flower thief, known as Jade-Faced Fox." Fengjiu smiled and nodded her head as she spoke. The man's eyes carried a smile. "You don't have any evil aura on you, so how could you be a flower thief? Speak." Why are you looking for us? Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. That's where you're wrong. Clearly, you guys are the ones who asked me to come here. How did it become me looking for you? As she spoke, she glanced at the few people who led the way. Boss, we caught them after we met them. If you find them pleasing to the eye, we'll just chase them out. The brawny men said, somewhat worried that the boss on the treehouse would get angry. After all, his methods were still frightening. It's easier to invite a god than to send him away. Since he's here, do you think he'll leave so easily? The man glanced at the few people. Although he had a smile on his face, his expression revealed a bloodthirsty aura. Hearing this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but chuckle. Don't worry, I don't want to find trouble with you. I just want to help you guys find someone here. Her voice slightly paused, and she glanced back. Her gaze fell on the wild boar. Look, I even brought you a gift of thanks. The surrounding people's mouths twitched. A wild boar as a gift? This person really wasn't polite. Hearing this, the man on the treehouse smiled and asked, I wonder who you're looking for? Xianghua. She looked at the man and said, Heavenly Yuan Palace's left enforcer Xianghua? The man's eyes flickered. How did you know he was here? Of course I've met him. Can I ask why you're looking for him? He's a helper? Are you interested? She looked at the young man mockingly. She was a little curious. How could such a young man be caught and trapped in here? The man smiled and said, Let Xianghua be your assistant. You're quite arrogant. He smiled and walked down from the treehouse, saying, We've been looking for Xianghua for some time, and we know where he stays in this forest. However, it's not that easy to catch him. If you're interested, you can come with us tomorrow to meet him. Of course. She nodded and said to the two brawny men beside her, Roast that wild boar. Chapter 780. Before the burly man could finish his sentence, he saw a sharp dagger slid across his neck. He caught a glimpse of a cold glint from the corner of his eyes, causing his entire body to stiffen. He stared at the red-clothed youth in shock. I know that this is all about power. If you don't mind, can we have a spar? Her indifferent voice sounded so languid, without any lethality or danger. However, the people around her frowned as they pondered, their eyes filled with an unprecedented seriousness. They were all villains who had taken hundreds of lives on their backs. Some of them had even taken more than 100 lives. To them, death was not something to be afraid of. However, none of them were willing to fall into the hands of a youth whose background they did not even know. The burly man obviously understood this point. After he froze for a moment, he carried the wild boar to roast it expressionlessly. Why are you all staring at me? She raised her eyebrows and swept her gaze across the crowd. After her gaze swept past them, they either looked away or retracted their gazes. The man's gaze swept past the accessory on the young man's waist that was half covered by the young man's red robes. After that, he said, Are you a student of the School of Stars and Clouds? To be able to obtain one of the 3 treasures of the Heavenly Nebula Tower, the Rainbow Glaze Feather, you are obviously not an ordinary person. You can recognize the treasure on my waist at one glance. Your eyes are not bad. Feng Jiu laughed lightly. She sat down on a wooden stool beside a 4-legged wooden table made of wood. She took out some wine and 2 wine cups from her space. Drink? The man sat down beside the table, while Bai Xiao stood behind Feng Jiu. The burly men around them saw that the young man took out something so casually. He was not afraid of being stared at by them. They were all deep in thought. You don't look old. How did you get in? She poured a cup of wine and handed it over. I was caught by a few old things from Gui's sect. He raised the cup and smelled the wine. I've been here for more than 2 years. This is the first time I've smelled wine like this. Feng Jiu smiled. After taking a sip, she said, Maybe you can consider it. If you follow me, you'll have a good life. You have a way to get me out of here? His eyes flashed as he stared at the young man in front of him. Of course. So you're saying that you have a jade token that allows you to leave the academy? That's right, she replied with a smile. Then she felt the men who were originally sitting down stand up one by one and stare at her like hungry tigers. She was not unfamiliar with that kind of ferocious gaze. The man sipped his wine and narrowed his eyes. You are very confident. I wonder if you really have the ability to be confident. Feng Jiu toyed with the wine glass and smiled. His eyes flashed with a touch of wickedness. Maybe you can try, but I won't let you try in vain. If you lose, my life will be yours. As soon as he finished speaking, the wine glass in the man's hand flew out. At the same time, he flipped his hand, and a dagger was held in a reverse grip towards Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu tossed the wine glass in his hand. He raised his hand, and spiritual energy flowed out. Invisible spiritual energy flowed out like water ripples and swept the wine glass into the air. He reached out and grabbed the man's wrist that was holding the dagger and twisted it to the back. He easily parried the man's attack with his other hand. He raised his leg and kicked the man's calf. The man's knee hurt and fell forward. Chapter 781. Feng Jiu flicked her other hand with spiritual power and caught the 2 wine cups without looking up. She gently placed them on the table. She stared at the man and said with a smile, "Your life is really worthless." The man stiffened slightly. His chin was slightly raised because of the dagger pressed against his throat. He looked up at the red-clothed youth who was smiling dazzlingly in front of him. Although his expression didn't show it, his heart was slightly shaken. He knew very well what kind of skills he had, but this youth's skills were actually above his. He subdued him with a raise of his hand, and the dagger pressed against his throat was his own. The burly men who stood up around them stared at the 2 of them with different expressions. Some of them originally wanted to attack, but when they saw the youth subduing their boss in a few moves, they all held back. They were all great spiritual masters. Seeing how the youth killed one of them in the blink of an eye and then subdued their boss, they already knew that his skills were definitely above that of a great spiritual master. However, above great spiritual masters were foundation establishment cultivators. Could it be that this youth was already a foundation establishment cultivator? Feng Jiu withdrew her hand and sat down with a flick of her robe. Her slender white fingers tapped on the table. "Pour the wine." Bai Xiao, who was standing to the side, was startled. When he came back to his senses, he picked up the wine jar and was about to pour wine for her, but she stopped him. "I'm not talking to you. Go sit on the side." She waved her hand and indicated for him to sit down. Her gaze fell on the man who was kneeling on one knee in front of her. Bai Xiao was startled. He obediently put down the jar and sat down on the side. He stared at Feng Jiu and suddenly felt that the aura that Feng Jiu sometimes emitted was very intimidating. It made people involuntarily obey and not dare to disobey. He had only seen that kind of pressure and that kind of aura from his clan's ancestor. The man stared at Feng Jiu for a while before standing up. He put away his dagger and walked forward to pick up the jar of wine and pour a cup for the youth. Seeing this scene, the surrounding men all frowned, but they didn't say anything. They only stared at them. They watched as the red-clothed young man sat at the table while their boss stood at the side. When the young man finished drinking the wine in his cup, he poured another cup for him until a voice sounded. Everyone's gaze shifted to the source of the voice. "It's here. The roasted wild boar is ready." 2 burly men carried a whole roasted boar forward and placed it on a tree. After placing it on the table, the 2 men said to the man, "Boss, this wild boar is very tender. It was roasted by Big Mountain using a special method. The smell of the hind leg is more fragrant, but we know that you prefer light flavors." And ants. When a man heard this, he looked up and glanced at Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu was holding a glass of wine and drinking. His face was slightly red, and there was a hint of blurriness in his eyes. It was as if he had drunk too much and didn't hear what the other 2 said. He finished his glass of wine and shouted for more wine. Bai Xiao tugged at Feng Jiu's sleeve. "Don't drink too much. It won't be good if you get drunk." He looked at the burly men who were eyeing the 2 of them like wolves and tigers and felt a little worried. "Yes, I won't drink too much. The roasted meat is here. Come, let's cut 2 pieces and have a taste." Chapter 782. Let me cut it. The two men who were carrying the roasted pig were waiting at the side. When they heard Feng Jiu's words, one of them stepped forward, picked up a knife, and cut 2 pieces of hind leg meat from the pig's hind leg. He carried the meat with a leaf and placed it in front of Feng Jiu and Bai Xiao. The hind leg is roasted very well. Try it. It's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It's very fresh. The burly man gestured for them to try the meat first. Bai Xiao looked at the roasted meat in front of her and couldn't help but swallow her saliva. She looked at Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu didn't look at them. He just looked at the roasted meat in front of him and said with a smile, "In that case, I'll try it first." As he spoke, he picked up the piece of hind leg meat wrapped in a leaf. When he was about to eat it, a pair of hands reached over and took the piece of meat away. Feng Jiu's eyes flickered. When he looked up, there was only confusion in his eyes. "What are you doing? Can't you cut it yourself if you want to eat it?" The man took away the 2 pieces of hind leg meat from Feng Jiu and Bai Xiao and moved them to the side. He picked up a knife and said, "The best part of this wild boar is the neck. The meat is very springy, fat, and juicy. Since you want to eat it, you have to eat this piece." As he spoke, he ignored the stares of the burly men. Instead, he cut 2 pieces of hind leg meat and placed them in front of the 2 men. "Try it." Feng Jiu took a bite and gestured to Bai Xiao. "Eat it. The taste is a little bland, but the texture is good." "Oh," Bai Xiao responded and picked up a piece to eat. As the sky darkened, Feng Jiu directly became the man who spoke here. He told them to prepare to look for Xianghua tomorrow morning. Then, he took Bai Xiao and occupied the treehouse as a place for them to rest. The treehouse was not big. Feng Jiu slept on the bed, and Bai Xiao could only find a random place to lie down and sleep. As for the people below, when they saw the 2 of them enter the treehouse, they retreated to the array formation outside. All of their gazes landed on the man. Some of them even questioned, "Boss, why didn't you kill those 2? That's right. If we let them eat the flesh of the hind leg, no matter how strong that red-clothed youth is, he will only become a soul under our hands. Boss, why did you stop them? Why didn't you let us kill those 2? Boss, don't tell us you're really going to be that young man's subordinate." When they said this, they all quieted down. Pairs of eyes stared at him. Their eyes were filled with viciousness, as if they were saying that if he really dared to do this, then he shouldn't blame them for not being polite. How could the man not know what these people were thinking? These people were all extremely vicious people. Every one of them had killed too many innocent people before they were captured by the 3 sects and the School of Stars and Clouds. They called him Big Boss, but that was only because they knew that he could protect them in this place. If their interests were truly endangered, it was not impossible for them to turn against each other and become enemies. Therefore, he said, "Do you all think it's easy to kill that red-clothed youth? Just based on the fact that he dared to bring only 1 person here, you should know that his strength and cultivation are definitely above ours. If we suddenly make a move, we will all be annihilated by him. Is that what you want to see? But we can drug him." "Drug him? How do you know that he doesn't know about drugs? What if he knows?" The man asked in a low voice. His sharp eyes swept over the person who spoke. Chapter 783. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. He didn't do anything to us, so let's ignore him for now. Let's find Xianghua tomorrow, the man said, and told everyone not to provoke him. Then he signaled for them to go back and rest. No one noticed that a red figure flashed through the night sky like a ghost, silent and undetectable. The next morning, Feng Jiu lazily stretched and got out of bed. After washing up, he kicked Bai Xiao, who was sleeping beside the bed. Get up, get up." Bai Xiao turned over and suddenly remembered where she was. She quickly jumped up and saw that Feng Jiu had already walked out. She quickly got up and followed him out with a sleepy face. Outside, when the 2 of them came out, everyone's eyes fell on them, especially the red figure. "You're all up early." She yawned and stretched, asking, "Should we go now?" "Yes, there's still some distance from where Xianghua is. If we go now, we should be able to meet him." The man looked at Feng Jiu and said, "I haven't introduced myself since yesterday. I'm Du Fan, known as the Iron Fan Scholar." "Iron Fan Scholar?" Feng Jiu was slightly stunned and looked him up and down. I don't see how you look like a scholar. But where's your iron fan? Hearing his words, everyone was slightly surprised. This young man had never heard their boss's name. The Iron Fan scholar was quite famous in Qingting, but he had never heard of him. Du Fan was also slightly stunned. Hearing his question, he said, Iron Fan was destroyed. He paused and couldn't help but ask, You've never heard of the Iron Fan scholar? I've only heard of Princess Iron Fan. Feng Jiu said with a smile. His eyes swept over them and asked, But looking at you, it seems that this name is very famous? Du Fan didn't know what to say. He just said, It's getting late. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, he led the others out of the formation. Seeing this, Feng Jiu looked at Bai Xiao beside him and asked, You often travel around. Have you heard of the Iron Fan scholar? I've heard of him, but I've never seen him before. It's said that this person's methods are savage. He once annihilated a village with the surname Chun in a single night, not even sparing the elderly and children. Because of this, he was known by others. Because of his scholarly attire and the iron fan in his hand, he was called the Iron Fan Scholar. Vendetta. She raised her eyebrows. I don't know about that. Bai Xiao shook her head. Along the way, the people in front did not speak much, but Feng Jiu and Bai Xiao, who were following behind, chatted all the way. About 2 hours later, the crowd in front finally stopped. I asked them to surround Xianghua. Do you want to go and take a look? Du Fan walked over and asked Feng Jiu. Yes, let's go and take a look. She nodded and followed behind. At this time, Xianghua, who was wearing animal skin, was filling water by a stream. Just as he was about to go back, he vaguely heard a flurry of footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw that the people had quickly formed a circle to surround him. Xianghua, I've finally caught you today. Chapter 784. I've long heard that you're here, but I didn't expect it to be true, another brawny man said. Xianghua, we're really enemies on a narrow road. Back then, I was beaten up by you and had to lie in bed for nearly a month before recovering. Now that you've fallen into my hands, how should I repay you? Just as the crowd was about to beat him up, they heard Feng Jiu's voice from behind them. Repay what? Have you forgotten that this person is mine? Feng Jiu, who was dressed in red, walked out from the back. She walked past the crowd and arrived in front of Xianghua. After looking him up and down, she smiled and said, We meet again. Xianghua looked at the red-clothed youth who had saved his life. His eyes moved slightly. You're here for me? That's right. Do you want to go out with me? She crossed her arms and looked at the person in front of her with a smile. When the people behind her heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Go out. They also wanted to go out. Go out for what? Of course, to go out and do something big. Hearing this, the people behind her had strange expressions. Why did she sound like a bandit? Did this young man really not run out from some mountain? Not interested. He walked past the crowd and was about to leave. Some people blocked his way, while others looked at Feng Jiu expectantly. He's not interested, but we're interested. Hearing this, Feng Jiu chuckled. But I'm not interested in you. When the brawny men heard this, their expressions turned ugly. The people of Tianyuan Palace have been causing trouble again recently. It's said that they're divided into 2 factions, and they fight every 2 or 3 days. Many forces have set their sights on Tianyuan Palace, intending to swallow this fat piece of meat. She said casually and walked leisurely in front of him. I promised someone to reorganize Tianyuan Palace, so I had to take over. I came to you because you were once the left protector of Tianyuan Palace, so you're familiar with everything about Tianyuan Palace. You should be able to help me. You want to reorganize Tianyuan Palace? Xianghua sneered and glanced at the youth in front of him, thinking that he was a little ignorant. Yes, I do. She nodded and smiled. You don't believe me? Let's make a bet. Xianghua pursed his lips and stared at the youth, saying, Right now, I'm only a great spirit master cultivator. This kind of strength can't help you much. Isn't it just a damaged golden core that caused a cultivator's strength to drop to the level of a great spirit master? Don't worry, I'll be able to restore your golden core cultivation within 3 days. Fengjiu said disapprovingly. It was not difficult for her to help people improve their cultivation. What's more, Xianghua had a strong foundation. The decline in his cultivation was only because his golden elixir was damaged. As long as his golden elixir was repaired, his cultivation would naturally return. She spoke casually, but she didn't know that the people around her were shocked. A golden core cultivator who could recover his strength within 3 days? Is this for real? Could a broken gene dam be repaired? Xianghua was originally a golden core cultivator, but after he was betrayed, his golden core was damaged and his cultivation regressed. His spiritual power would forever remain at the level of a great spirit master, but he didn't expect that today someone would actually say that a damaged golden core could be repaired. Chapter 785. Well, didn't your golden core break? It should have been damaged by a palm strike, right? Fortunately, your golden core didn't break completely, so it can still be repaired. Wasn't it? What did he mean by wasn't it? A broken golden core meant that a cultivator's life was ruined, but for him, it was just a simple word. Wasn't it? Was this young man ignorant? Or was he really capable? Did he know what a broken golden core meant? I've never heard of a broken golden core being repaired. Why should I believe you? At this moment, Xianghua couldn't take a step forward. His whole body was tense, and his hands under his sleeves were tightly clenched into fists, suppressing the excitement in his heart. On the side, Dufan also looked at the red-clothed young man in shock. He could tell that he wasn't joking, but seemed to really have the ability and a way to repair the damaged golden core. Fengjiu sneered and glanced at him. I don't believe that you don't want to try in 2 days. As she spoke, she turned and walked in the direction of the treehouse. Bai Xiao hurriedly followed, thinking, repairing the golden core? It seems that I've never heard of it. However, can Fengjiu really do it? Looking at the young man who turned and walked away, Xianghua almost didn't hesitate to step forward and follow him. No matter whether it was possible or not, he wanted to try. After all, no one wanted to spend their whole life doing nothing. The group of burly men looked at each other as they walked back. They whispered to each other, "A broken gold core can be repaired? Why haven't I heard of it?" That's right. Are you serious? Regardless of whether it's true or not, I'm just curious whether this young man knows medicine. Nonsense. How can he say that he can repair the golden core if he doesn't know medicine? As soon as this person finished speaking, the surrounding people fell silent, as if they had thought of something, and they all froze. Yes, since he knows medicine, doesn't that mean he knows that they put medicine on the roast pig last night? But why didn't he mention it? At that time, he even picked it up and was about to eat it. Does he really not know? Or is he pretending not to know? Dufan's eyes flickered as he followed behind. He only needed to think a little to know that the young man from last night was trying to test him. At this moment, he couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if he hadn't taken away the poisoned roast meat and let him eat it instead. After walking for about 2 hours, they returned to the treehouse. Fengjiu turned around and looked at everyone. Finally, his gaze fell on Dufan. Dufan, set up a barrier here and watch over your subordinates. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter. Dufan glanced at him and replied, yes. Then, he called everyone out and set up a barrier around them to prevent anyone from intruding. Inside, Bai Xiao asked, what about me? What do I have to do? Is there anything I can do to help? Go to the side, Fengjiu said. Then he said to Xianghua, sit down and give me your hand. Xianghua glanced at him, went to the table, sat down, and stretched out his hand. He watched as the young man stretched out his hand to feel his pulse, then took out a pen and paper to write on the side. In the end, he took out a lot of medicinal herbs from his space and began to mix medicine on the table. Seeing the young man's skillful movements, Xianghua's eyes moved slightly. He wanted to ask several times, but he held back. Chapter 786. Xianghua looked at the bottle of dark green liquid. His eyes moved slightly, but he still didn't say anything. He picked it up and drank it in one gulp. Go to the small bed in the tree house and lie down. she ordered without raising her head. She picked up some herbs and took out a small medicine stove from the space and handed it to Bai Xiao. Boil this for me. Boil 2 bowls of water in a half a bowl. Oh, Bai Xiao responded and hurriedly went to boil the medicine. Xiang Hua went up to the treehouse. It didn't take long for him to feel a little dizzy. He held the bed and lay down. It didn't take long for him to lose consciousness. At the table under the tree, Feng Jiu began to prepare the restoration medicine. Fortunately, the medicinal materials in her space were very sufficient. She had almost all the medicinal materials needed for restoration. However, the medicine to restore the golden elixir was not so easy to refine. This was her first time experimenting. As time passed, Xiang Hua was still asleep in the treehouse. Feng Jiu was still preparing the medicine, and Bai Xiao had poured out the medicine. The medicine is ready. Should I give it to him? Bring it over. I'll add something. She gestured for him to bring the boiled medicine over. Bai Xiao walked forward with the medicine in her hands. She took out some kind of medicinal powder and mixed it into the bowl. The originally pitch-black bowl of medicine seemed to have a little bit of green light floating around it. It was very strange. He fainted, bit and bit by bit. Don't waste it. She handed the bowl to him and instructed. Okay, I know. Bai Xiao carried the medicine up and really poured it down his throat with a spoon. It took half an hour for him to finish the bowl of medicine. After he came down, he couldn't help but ask, Feng Jiu, why don't you let him drink it himself when he's awake? When I gave him the medicine before, his whole body was in a state of dormancy. The medicine he drinks now will go straight to his dantian and directly repair the golden elixir. Only in this way can the effect of the medicine not be lost. It can have a very good effect. Hearing this, he nodded his head in confusion and didn't ask any more questions. Help me deal with the medicine here. That's it. Crush it for later use. All right. Bai Xiao came to the side to help. Both of them were busy with their own tasks. As time passed, the people outside the barrier were getting impatient. Boss, are we just going to let them do as they please? A muscular man asked. Boss, will you follow them? Boss, why don't we charge in and kill all 3 of them? Du Fan glanced at them coldly and said, All of you, stand guard at a proper distance from each other. Don't drag me down. His bloodthirsty gaze swept across the crowd. If anyone dares to have any thoughts, don't blame me for ending his life first. Hearing this, although everyone was dissatisfied, they did not dare to talk about that topic again. Some of them sat in groups of 3 or 5. Some said that they were going out to hunt some game, and some sat under a tree to rest. All of them were waiting. They want to know if the red-robed youth could really repair the damaged golden cores. Du Fan stared at them. After seeing that they had all sat down in an orderly manner, he then sat under a tree with half-closed eyes. His mind was spinning rapidly. Time passed, and night fell. The faint roars of ferocious beasts could be heard from the forest. In this pitch-black night, it gave people a kind of penetrating and dangerous aura. Chapter 787. In order to repair the gold core, in addition to the assistance of medicine, she also needed to use golden needles to pierce the acupoints and supplement it with spiritual power to have a miraculous effect. This golden needles piercing the acupoints was her own unique acupuncture technique. Even in this immortal cultivation world, there was no one who could use this kind of acupuncture technique. In other words, she could repair the damaged gold core, but other people might not be able to do it. Bai Xiao stood aside and watched with bated breath, not daring to disturb him. She noticed that each golden needle was condensed with spiritual power visible to the naked eye. With the rotation of the golden needle, the spiritual power seeped into the body. Finally, she watched as Feng Jiu moved his hand away, but the golden needle was still there, trembling slightly. She watched as Feng Jiu took out another golden needle and inserted it into a different acupoint with the same technique. Again, each golden needle had a spiritual power visible to the naked eye. The unconscious Xiang Hua's upper body was naked, and his body was covered in beads of sweat. His face was red from time to time, and as more and more golden needles fell, his body began to condense spirit energy. This spirit energy seemed to be stimulated by the golden needles, and it seemed to be resonating with each of the golden needles. Why my sweat? Feng Jiu raised his head slightly, twirling a golden needle in his hand. Bai Xiao heard him and hurriedly went forward to wipe the sweat from his forehead. Well, her task here was to wipe his sweat. It wasn't until midnight that Feng Jiu pulled out all the golden needles from Xiang Hua's body and fed him medicine again. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief and walk to the side to find a place to rest. Feng Jiu, water. Bai Xiao handed him water and asked, "How is he? Is he okay?" "Tonight is the repair period. It will probably be repaired tomorrow morning." She took a sip of water and said, "Stay here and guard me tonight. You can also find a place to rest." So, the damaged gold core can really be repaired? He was a little surprised because he didn't believe it from the beginning. Even though he saw the way he inserted the needles, he still had some doubts. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows. "What? Do you really think I'm lying to you?" She chuckled. "Otherwise, why do you think old White can speak? Didn't you say that Lao Bai ate one of your pills by mistake?" As soon as he finished speaking, he was slightly stunned. "That's right. If he really didn't have the ability, how could he refine medicinal pills? Moreover, it was the kind of pill that could make beasts speak. That's why I said, you'll have meat to eat if you follow me, right?" She patted his shoulder and smiled. "Xiao Bai, it's Bai Xiao." He was a little displeased. "Little White suits you better." She chuckled and said, "Little White, let me tell you, there are too many benefits to following me. Look, after I conquer the Tianyuan Palace, I'll make you a protector. How about that? From now on, you'll be a beast tamer of the Tianyuan Palace. You need to practice your skills quickly. Even if you can't defeat your opponent, you can still use your familiars to fight. Do you understand? But I'm just a beast tamer, not a beast tamer." Chapter 788. It doesn't matter if you can't beat them. Tame Beastie and let it fight for you. You'll definitely be able to beat them to a pulp. At that time, you'll be so powerful. When you return to your family in the future, won't everyone fawn over you when they see you? Don't you think so? Upon hearing Feng Jiu's words, Bai Xiao was completely intoxicated by the future she had planned for him. Listening to it, she felt that it was really the case. She could not help but feel excited. So, even if my combat strength is not good, as long as I become a beast tamer, I can let Beastie fight for me. His eyes were shining, and there was unconcealable excitement in his words. Of course. Feng Jiu nodded affirmatively. So, beast tamers have a very bright future. Feng Jiu, don't worry. I'll definitely work hard and won't let you down, he said confidently. The little bit of lack of confidence and timidity in his heart had long been replaced by excitement and exhilaration. "Well, I have faith in you. Good luck." She patted him on the shoulder and said, "I'll take a rest first." As she spoke, she took out a cloak and covered herself with it. Then, she sat back and closed her eyes to rest. The night seemed to pass by peacefully. That night, Du Fan completed the task given by Feng Jiu very well. He guarded the formation and did not let anyone step inside. Last night, two big men wanted to enter while he was resting, but they were both killed by him. Perhaps the bloody scene shocked everyone and made them stop thinking about it. At dawn, Feng Jiu, who was in the treehouse, examined Xiang Hua's body. He covered his dantian with his palm and probed his damaged golden elixir. When his divine sense detected that the golden elixir had been completely repaired, and Xiang Hua's aura had also been raised from a great spiritual master to the level of a golden elixir practitioner, he withdrew his hand with satisfaction. Feng Jiu, his aura has now returned to the level of a golden elixir practitioner? Bai Xiao squatted next to him and asked. "Yes, I've recovered. With the help of the medicine, I've directly become a peak Jindan stage cultivator." A confident smile appeared between her brows. She knew that there was nothing that Feng Jiu couldn't do. Upon hearing this, Bai Zhao's eyes flashed and she asked, "Feng Jiu, can you treat my father as well?" She raised a brow. "Your father also injured his core formation? Didn't I tell you before? I'm from the beast taming clan. In fact, Our clan calls us beast taming, but the only one who truly knows how to tame beasts is our clan's ancestor. He truly knows how to tame beasts. Us juniors, including my father's generation, can only be considered beast tamers, not beast tamers. Originally, my father had the highest chance of becoming a beast tamer. However, one year, a ferocious beast injured his golden core. After that, nothing happened. So, I was thinking that if you can really repair his golden core, why don't you help my father repair it too? He looked at him with a hopeful expression. Upon hearing this, she narrowed her eyes and smiled slyly. About that. Actually, it's not impossible, but But what? Tell me first. Are you one of my people? She stared at him like a fox and asked, what do you mean by one of your people? Don't tell me you really have that kind of hobby. He looked at her with a horrified expression and couldn't help but take a step back. Chapter 789. What do you mean? He asked with a frown as he touched his aching head. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sighed. I'm really curious. How did you survive until now after leaving the family for so long? She had no choice but to make things clear when she met such an ignorant person. It means that you have to be loyal to me and can't betray me. Deal. Hearing this, he thought for a moment. Well, actually, it's possible. It means that I recognize you as my master, right? I submit to you, and then you protect me and my family? You seem to be quite strong, so you should have the ability to protect my family. So of course I'll do it. Feng Jiu glared at him. She wanted to take back what she had just said. This guy was just pretending to be stupid. With one sentence, he directly asked her to protect his family. You should hurry up and train your familiar. Otherwise, I'll lose too much. As the two were talking, they heard Xiang Hua move on the bed. They looked at him and saw his hand move. Not long after, he opened his eyes. You're awake? Feng Jiu stood by the bed and looked at Xiang Hua, who turned over and sat up. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. How do you feel? The spiritual force in my body is abundant and vigorous. That's the aura of the peak of the golden elixir realm. He looked shocked and looked at Feng Jiu. You really repair my golden elixir and promoted my cultivation to the peak of the golden elixir realm? What do you mean, you? From now on, you have to call me Master, Bai Xiao said from the side. Just call me Ninth Young Master, Feng Jiu said with a smile and squinted her eyes. Hearing this, Xiang Hua immediately knelt on one knee and saluted. Greetings, Ninth Young Master. Thank you for your great kindness. Repairing the golden elixir was a great kindness. In this life, there was no harm in acknowledging her as his master. Get up. She gestured, moved her hand slightly, and took out the Qingfeng sword. She asked, Xiang Hua, do you recognize this? Xiang Hua looked at the seven-star gorgeous sword. After the sword was opened, a green light burst out. The words faintly appeared on the sharp sword blade, made his eyes narrow. Qingfeng's sword. That's right, it's the Qingfeng sword. Do you know why I'm looking for you? Apart from your familiarity with the Heavenly Yuan Palace, more importantly, you're the first guardian of the Heavenly Yuan Palace. You're also the person who followed my master, Chu Batian. Young Master's master is the Palace Lord. He widened his eyes in shock. He didn't expect the young man in front of him to have a master-disciple relationship with the Palace Master. Immediately, he asked, what about the Palace Master? He's now. The Heavenly Yuan Palace declined decades ago, and he passed away decades ago. I only became his disciple because I was fated to meet him. I followed the will he left behind to find the Qingfeng sword and rebuild the Heavenly Yuan Palace. At this moment, she did not have her usual playful and lazy expression. Instead, she was cold and serious. Therefore, I need your help. I want the Heavenly Yuan Palace, which has been in decline for decades, to regain its prestige. Hearing this, he was so excited that his eyes reddened. Back then, I followed the Palace Lord and was promoted to Left Guardian by him. At that time, I was only in my early 20s and was only a great spiritual master. Who would have thought that after so many years, I would be able to see the Qing foam sword again and hear about rebuilding the heavenly Yuan Palace. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.